everybody doing today on this lovely, beautiful Saturday night? Got 2 here, 2 likes. That's good, but who's gonna start talking? We'll get the video start here, get everything set up here. This could be another long night. So I figured I would start early.
Names, dates, phone numbers, birthdays.
Everything's set up here. Got 5 here and only 3 likes.
Well, let's be real. South Carolina is a red state, so why does it have some of the...
Let's get going here. Why is this here under? Alright, I think we got it. I think we got it, guys. I don't know. We'll see. I wish I had a computer sometimes. It makes it easier, but you gotta use what you got. And I know the lifters. Oh, look at this here guy. I got nothing. I'm sorry. I don't have no hot pockets. Just takes time. Okay. Is that right? See, look at that. Boom. Done. Now we just gotta get it in there. That's all.
Lewis Republicans in the Senate. Paul Dans joins us now with a big announcement. He's running as a challenger to South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. So, Paul, thanks so much for joining us here today. So let's just get into it. Why did you decide to run for Senate?
For our children. We need representation in the United States Senate that actually reflects the people of South Carolina. We don't need a 70-year-old childless warmonger. We have to rebuild this country. We have to save it, and we are going to do that through South Carolina values. Lindsey Graham's time is up. He's completely disconnected with people here on the ground, and it's getting to a point where it's very dangerous for us to continue this way.
Let's on name ID, and he's well known nationally. This is someone who has pushed military intervention and a number of other things, but then he seems to come back on TV and say, I won't say the opposite, but he says different things, right, over time. Why do you think he does that?
Look, he's always been a deep state operative. Sometimes he'll back up. This past Sunday, he was on the morning shows and basically completely flummoxed when showing his responses from 2017. He was one of the original Russiagate hoaxers, and now we're supposed to believe that he wants to get to the bottom of it. This is a guy who cheerleaded every major international intervention over the last 20 years. His record is 3 endless wars, and he wants to start a 4th, World War III, by putting boots on the ground in Iran. How does he get away with it? He gets away with it because until me, he's never had a legitimate challenger. And this is going to stop. We're standing up. We're going to liberate South Carolina from the clutches of the deep state. This is curtains for Lindsey, and it's Sunset Boulevard at this stage.
I mean, he's opposed some of Trump's most aggressive executive reforms. He's flipped on key issues, yet he always tries to say that he's MAGA. I mean, that's that's frustrating, I think, to many in our audience who they have real problems with Lindsey Graham and would like to see a challenger, but he maintains that he's MAGA.
Look, I, for one, I've been MAGA since, before the escalator. I was hoping he ran in 2012. For MAGA to look at Lindsey Graham, there is no amount of of lipstick you can put on that man to make MAGA fall for him. It's just, we look at him and say, no, dude, that is a rhino. And as much as he, golfing with Trump aside, he can't resist, and cheering on bombs. It's like in South Carolina, you know how we spend Sunday morning? We go to church. That's what we do. When I get out of church, I get another push notification that Lindsay is advocating to drop bombs in another part of the world. And it's just completely disconnected. And the reality is he really is the deep state kind of tool here in South Carolina.
Well, your opponents are trying to go out there and push a media narrative of, oh, this is going to be a short-lived race. So what's your response to them?
Look, God's on our side. We are moving forward with this. This race is going to prosecute Lindsey Graham. And in the mortal words of Andrew Breitbart, we're going to vet him this time. And the bottom line is that people are done with Lindsey. He can't get on a stage with Trump down here without being drowned out by booze. You saw that in 2024 in Pickens. You go to Somerville, you go to Columbia, it's always the same story. The boos are getting louder. The polling shows that he's completely underwater, and even President Trump's endorsement, isn't gonna move the needle. Even more people, as a majority, believe that, and I say this as the biggest fan of President Trump, someone who's just spent his last decade plus working every day for America First, that he can get it wrong. He did endorse Mitch McConnell. Of all the greatness of President Trump, he has a Achilles heel when it comes to personnel. But look, we're not going to let our kids go in the hands of Lindsey Graham. That's not the going away gift for President Trump in a couple years, to leave South Carolina with that warmonger. And it ends today. And we're going to take all this work that we were able to do, getting him in, getting Project 2025. I was the architect of Project 2025. And that was born really in response to people like Lindsey Graham. He's the endless war, endless government, endless spending guy. And we're about God, family, and country.
That's right. God, family, country, little tars. Pay attention.
That's why your ears won't stop ringing, and why silence feels impossible. Did you know that?
Family and country.
Amazing. Project 2025. Let's talk about that. Behind you. I mean, here's something where that's a controversial issue, right? It's a controversial issue. It has some critics from the right. It has some, and it has, of course, the left thinks it's, the evil fascist plan incarnate. And in reality, as we've said on the show, this was a bunch of people, many of whom are in the administration now, who were banding together with ideas to really return power to the people. But, that has its critics on right and left. So what do you say to them?
Well, the proof's in the pudding. President Trump had the greatest 180 days in large measure because thousands of patriots came together. I led them. I kind of created this based on my own experience as an outsider going into Washington and seeing how do we even make change here? And, what we were able to do is take all this good work and put it in one place, centralize it. And now the administration's been able to operationalize that on a daily basis. Like the libs were right. It is existential threat to the deep state. That's exactly what we meant. We said, Jacques Hughes, we're coming after you. And we put the source code to the deep state online, and they lost their minds. People on our side, I think they got a little confused or a little bit competitive about it. But to be clear, our side was 110 conservative groups coming together under the auspices of the Heritage Foundation. We used that great organization's convening power to basically say, look, we agree about 70% of the stuff. Let's stop arguing about the 30 and help someone the next time he or she's in power to move out day one. And the result's been fantastic. So look, this race is far from finished. We have, fought the good fight, but right now we know where the choke point is, and that's the United States Senate. And President Trump needs advocates like myself who are going to be able to move out day one, understand the policy, understand who the controlled opposition like Lindsey Graham are, and get things done.
So with that in mind, let's dive into that a little bit deeper, because we are all about taking down the deep state here on this show. So what does draining the swamp actually look like in the Senate right now?
Well, sure. With what we put forward, and this was based on my experience. I'm an attorney. I worked for 20 years. I was a true believer. I went to MIT, undergrad, in the University of Virginia, the School of Law. But even when I came into the government, I was unprepared. I was like, these guys in Washington, they play their own game and they hate outsiders. That's the first thing you realize when you look at the Senate. It's a club, right? Like, these guys are basically doing the same thing year in, year out. I played varsity sports, right? And what we used to do is sometimes switch jerseys, scrimmaging. That's what they essentially do, but they're always on the same team. And so that's that uniparty element. And we have to come in with people who've led, like I have, the movement and say, no, we're doing it this way. This is what the president wants. I don't care what the bad press you're going to write. I don't care all the guffawing that the libs are going to do and the crocodile tears. We're moving forward. We're going to actually cut the budget like the way we said with Doge. We're going to do meaningful stuff. And once you have that courage to lead, people follow. In my experience, I went into OPM and everyone was sitting around. And I said, why are all these careers running the joint? We should be in power. So I removed 4 of the 5 that sat right underneath the director. And there was a large outcry. And then it settled down and everyone realized this is how it was under Reagan. This is how it always was supposed to be. Like, they've built a great government for us. Our ancestors have. We just need to get back to its roots. We have to do some major constitutional renovation of the place and get this in tip-top shape for the 250th birthday. And I'm going to do that. This is Project 2026. Project 2025 was birthed right here in Charleston at my kitchen counter 2 years ago. It went global. And this is the next move. We're gonna make this country great again, but we're going to start at the headwaters of the swamp in the U.S. Senate.
Well, Paul, you're speaking a lot of my love language here. When you talk about political will, being the way forward and not caring. I mean, the Senate, as you know, is the exact opposite of that. It is the choke point. It is the place where good ideas go to die. And here's the frustration I think that so many people have. It's that no matter what, it felt like for years, we're just seeing some signs it could change now. But for years, it felt like there's just nothing you could do to get these fake Republicans the hell out of there, right? And they have, they've been there a while. They have a lot of resources at their command, right? And it feels so hopeless. I think just now people are starting to wake up and say, hey, wait a minute. We might be able to get rid of Cornyn in Texas. We could get rid of some of these people. And certainly the base is there. So my question would be, though, so what's the path in South Carolina? Because a lot of people, they know who Lindsey Graham is, and they don't like him anymore, and they realize what he stands for, and it's not what they stand for. But yet, people throw up their hands and say, well, how do you win against these guys? They keep on winning. How do you?
This is the hearing aid secret your insurance company doesn't want you to know about. You've seen those hearing aid prices, right? $4,000.
Well, how do you win against these guys? They keep on winning. How do you do that in South Carolina?
Well, there's 2 things, and we can get them done. Number 1 is courage, right? I learned this when I went into the admin as an outsider, and I saw people kind of cowering around. I'm a lawyer. I'm a problem solver from MIT. I'm maybe a little dense because I played lacrosse, and I would play the tack, and I just went to the goal. You always have to be on offense. But more than that, you have to have courage. As Steve Bannon often will say, that's the virtue upon which everything else rests. Without courage, as St. Paul reminds us, we have to be bold. We have to go out and do it. And then, too, people, it's a money thing. Lindsey has 15 to 20 million. If we want to make this happen, we have to come together as patriots. I'm lining up this case. We're going to prosecute it against Lindsey. This is going to happen. I really call on all those patriots who've been, blessed by God to really have these resources. Check us out. We're at pauldans.com. Support this campaign. You're going to see a lot of very interesting stuff come out about Lindsey Graham. And, we are going to do this in an economical way, sure, the same way we want to run government. We're going to really bring government down the hill. But this all happened because a few of us stood up and said, we don't accept the status quo. We're not buying this anymore. And that isn't even the law. And that's what we need to do.
Paul, already a savvy media veteran, giving out the website. Give it to us one more time for people.
Well, it's my name. It's Paul Dans, DANS.com. We're launching tomorrow in Charleston. We'll have a live feed on. You can access that through our website. And we're going to start with a prayer service in St. Michael's Church. That's where some of the greatest patriots in our country, Charles Pickney and their eternal rest in that very church yard. But, the patriots here are getting restless. There's a groundswell here in South Carolina. I want everyone to send prayers. This is a real movement. The man upstairs is in charge of this one. And, I am called to do this. I feel like I don't have any choice. I have 4 kids. This is a future. This is a country that gave my family everything. And I'm giving back. And this is going to happen. So rest easy, patriots. But we got to put our shoulder into the wheel this next year. And I appreciate everyone's support.
Paul Dans, thanks so much. We'll be watching.
Thank you both.
Don't mix pink salt with lemon and 2 other ingredients if you don't want to donate your entire wardrobe in less than a week. Don't believe me? Give me...
I have some breaking news coming out of Washington, D.C. regarding billionaire George Soros, who has meddled in our elections, the presidency, district attorneys for decades, and his connection to Hillary Clinton and the Russiagate hoax. I'm vindicated on a story whether I was telling the truth. I now bring all the receipts. Also, Kamala Harris gets slapped back into reality with new polling data. Drew Allen. Drew, thank you for joining me again.
Hey, brother. Good to be here.
So lots of big stories going on. Drew is an author, publisher, and fellow podcaster. Let me pull this up on the screen because out this morning in Washington, D.C., it looks like they are making some serious connections between George Soros, his foundation, and the Hillary Clinton program to rig the 2016 election against Donald J. Trump. What are your thoughts on all of this? I know you are basically an expert in this topic.
Yeah, I'm working on a book on it now, but look, the George Soros connection, I think it's not surprising to hear that, but that is a revelation. That's something that we did not know before. A lot of the things in this appendix, the Sturm appendix that's been declassified, was confirmation. It's like many of your people in your audience, even since 2016, right, with the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, knew it was a hoax, and you could kind of like the painters do, you mark in with kind of pencil what you're going to paint, and then you start to fill it in with color. We got a lot of color that we got to fill in out of this appendix. That's kind of the analogy I would make. But yeah, I mean, this is big because, look, George Soros, the left tries to gas the Soros boogeyman. Like, no, he actually is evil incarnate, and he is behind so many things. He's behind gerrymandering efforts by the left, Mark Elias, people that are involved in this. I mean, anywhere you look where there's destruction and corruption, Soros's money can be found. So you've got Leonard Bernardo's one of the guys who headed, the Eurasia division or whatever of Open Society. Open Society is the George Soros Foundation. And you've got emails in early 2016. We're talking January 2016, right? Trump's not even the nominee yet. And you're having a back and forth between George Soros, right? We'll just call it George Soros, his people, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is the, head of the DNC at the time, and discussing a need to distract from Hillary Clinton's email scandal. So there's a discussion as early as, January, February, March, before WikiLeaks leaked anything. Long before that, there's an acknowledgement here that things aren't looking good for Hillary Clinton. She's mired in a scandal, and they are desperate to figure out a way to make this go away. And then obviously when it becomes clear that Donald Trump is going to be the nominee, and, that's February. But the first day of March, I think, was Super Tuesday, and he won like 7 of 10 or 11 states. And that's when everyone knew definitively Trump's going to be the guy. And then obviously they can go and say, okay, Trump, we're gonna society helping, colluding early on with the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign to figure out a way to, help the Democrats win here.
Let me ask you this. This Russia hoax, would they have played this playbook on anybody, or would it only work on Trump because of his money, his wife, his business dealings internationally?
It's a combination of factors. I promise to answer the question directly for everybody. I'm not trying, but it's complicated. So I just want to say a couple things. First off, you never would have had Trump-Russia collusion without Benghazi. Okay. Remember Benghazi, when she was Secretary of State, she was unresponsive. It was proven in the investigation that, the ambassador, Chris Stevens, in Benghazi, in Libya, he had been requesting additional personnel, bodyguard, security, all of that stuff. And all these requests were denied. And so on September 11th, right, that's when you had, they came under attack. They tried to blame it on a video, making fun of Muslims, and it wasn't. It was a premeditated attack on the embassy. And the Secretary of State and the State Department that obviously Hillary Clinton ran looked really bad because these people died because of their inaction and their refusal to listen to months and months of them asking for help. So out of that investigation, we learned that Clinton had a private email server, right? That's where that came from. So if you didn't have Benghazi, you wouldn't have had the email scandal and the private server and the classified emails. And so she was still under fire in 2016 because of Benghazi and also because of the email scandal. And she was desperate for that to go away. Now, you had a Republican, a wealthy billionaire Republican that was investigating all of the Republican candidates at the end of 2015. All right. That was before Donald Trump was going to be the nominee. He's doing opposition research, supposedly, on all the Republicans, and that's conducted by Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS found something, because when you're doing opposition research, you're just desperate for anything you can turn into a scandal, right, to hurt the opponent. So what they discovered with Donald Trump was, well, look, he's a billionaire, he's a business guy, so he's everywhere. He's got deals everywhere. He's been in Moscow before. I mean, a lot of American businesses have tried to build there and make money there and revenue there. So they discovered that through those deals, like, wow, he's come into contact with some of these Russian mafia people. And as a matter of fact, before the Clinton campaign hired Fusion GPS. So Fusion GPS has already done opposition research for a Republican. They don't need to do it anymore because Trump's going to be the nominee. And so Fusion GPS supposedly goes to the Clinton campaign at DNC and says, hey, they want to make money. So they're like, hey, we will keep looking into Trump for you. We've already found this information from our previous client about these ties to the mafia. And you have in this appendix, by the way. So this is important for the whole audience to understand. The New York Times and the left wants to pretend like this appendix is Russian disinformation, right? They want to pretend like the New York Times is saying that this appendix actually proves that all the things I'm saying are untrue because it's from Russians. Everything that we already knew is being corroborated by this appendix. So all that information about the previous investigation and so on and so forth, right? So Fusion GPS is already, because I looked at the testimony that they did in the past investigation. So long story short is DNC and Soros Foundation, et cetera, that are talking about how, or the Russians actually understand, they're talking about how they have dirt that are trying to associate Trump with these mafia figures in Russia. So my point is, it's this perfect storm. Okay, they're already looking into this kind of Russia angle. And then when it turns out that the DNC is hacked, and maybe it's the Russians, maybe it's not, they decide, okay, through collusion with one another, let's try let's tie Trump to Putin and vilify him. And you have emails in this appendix that are conversations between the Attorney General of the United States, Loretta Lynch, and people in the Clinton campaign, and discussing how they're going to do all of this. So the answer to your question is, it's kind of that string of events that leads to them coming up with this idea.
The number one food for fast fat burning, huh? Okay, let's see.
The fastest way to jumpstart fat burning all over is by boosting
to them coming up with this idea.
Okay. I have some more breaking news coming out. This is from Representative Congressman Tim Burchett's office. He has formally requested George Soros and his crony Leonard Bernardo be dragged in front of Congress. Documents revealed yesterday suggest Soros Foundation was directly involved in creating the Russia collusion hoax with Hillary Clinton. Burchett, the guy shutting down the $40 million in cash to the Taliban every week, this guy's now saying, wait a minute, subpoena this guy, get him in, and let's ask him under oath about all of the stuff that he did with Russia and probably all of the other stuff. I mean, this guy has been undermining America for decades. Your thoughts, are they going to push back? Are the Republicans going to have the courage to force him to come in and testify?
They better do it. If they don't, I'm about ready to wash my hands with some of these people. Now, look, he's on to something. Those aren't even the most important people that need to be subpoenaed. You have a big audience, Stephen. You have some of these people on sometimes. I hope they're listening, because they don't need to stop there. Christopher Steele was never interviewed. I don't know if people understand this. When Mueller did his investigation, when Durham did his investigation, Mueller in particular, right? Christopher Steele, the Steele dossier, those 17 memos that became the Steele dossier that made salacious, uncorroborated allegations like Trump peed on the hookers or the hookers peed on Trump in a Moscow hotel, that was the centerpiece of this whole thing. Without the Steele dossier, you wouldn't have any of this weaponization taking place, right? That is the center of this. And Steele was never interviewed. So Steele needs to be dragged before Congress. He needs to be subpoenaed and forced to talk and answer questions about this. There are other people as well. The two people in particular that ran Fusion GPS, I forget their names right now because there's a million names I got to hold in my head related to this investigation. One of them went in under the Mueller investigation, because you can go and read all these transcripts, by the way, of all these people that were interviewed. And one of them pleaded the fifth on every single case. He did not answer a single question before the committee. And so, and this is what happened. If you read, and people don't have to do this, you're not going to do this. This is why I'm going to write a book on it. But you read Mark Elias' testimony. You go through all these Democrats' testimony, and they're always lawyered up, obviously, and they are not answering the most important questions, and they're not forced to answer the most important questions either. So there's a huge cover-up that's been taking place for a long time, but now we have additional people. But, Steele and these other people need to be brought out and interviewed. I mean, isn't it amazing to you, like Christopher Steele, the Steele dossier, of all the people you wouldn't interview, you didn't interview him? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, you made my eyebrows go up when you said that. I was like, wait a minute. This guy continues to go on the mainstream media as a talking head expert, and he's never been brought in. That's amazing. Well, I hope that Tim Burchett and others will have the courage to bring George Soros and some of these other people in. Through all of this, Drew, I keep having this one thought in the back of my mind. I wish we had the amplification power of Elon Musk. He was bringing out these stories that you and me and others were talking about, but they weren't getting the attention because the left, the mainstream media, Mockingbird media, they weren't doing anything. They would just ignore the story, so half the country doesn't see that. But when Elon Musk would, then it would be seen by a lot of people, 100 million views, right? And then the media would try to attack Musk, which would draw even more attention. I just think Republicans really screwed up when they just abandoned Elon Musk. He would have been such a great ally.
Oh, what the?
Yeah, I understand your sentiment. I don't know where I fall in it in terms of the blame. I think it's a two-way street. You know, I mean, I can be disappointed on both sides. I'm super disappointed in Elon Musk. I mean, I guess, you know, people on kind of the right, if you will, which are also on, you know, the right on the issues and history and all that sort of stuff. You know, we have a certain amount of, you know, idealism in us, right? And it's just such a disappointing thing because it just feels like Elon Musk is a fraud in some ways now. And I want Elon Musk as an ally. I think that what you're saying now makes me understand and realize, you know, like just because things have to acknowledge all the good he did, right? And I just think that this story and what's going on with this is one of the most important things we need to solve, and there need to be accountability for in our nation's history. Because if you think about, Stephen and the audience, if you think about this country, that was really an inflection point, really a big turning point in our country. Because, you know, we had Obama for 8 years, and he was obviously one of the most corrupt presidents in U.S. history, a million scandals. But 2016, the left went too far, and 2016 gave way to 2020, which gave way to 2024. I mean, you think about 2016, it was the worst thing that's happened in this history at the time. I mean, the collusion, right, of intelligence agencies and weaponizing against the president with Trump-Russia collusion. But, you know, the purpose of that was to help Clinton be elected. And then once Trump won, they repurposed it to try and end his presidency like Watergate. That's what they hoped for. But 2020 was worse, and 2024 was worse than that, because in 2020, you had a replay. You had 51 former intelligence agents lying to say that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation right before the election. You had the FBI coordinating with Facebook and social media companies to censor free speech, right? This is all 2020. Forget the mail-in ballots and all that stuff. And then you go to like 2022 with a raid of Mar-a-Lago. You've got, you know, Trump-Russia collusion 2.0 was the, you know, from 2020 to 2024, trying to, you know, help Kamala Harris, or at the time Joe Biden, maybe win re-election. They were trying to prevent Trump from being able to run for president at all. And so you see this escalation since 2016, and we haven't recovered from it. On both sides, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you have total distrust in the government. Our institutions are just rotting. We've realized that, obviously. The deep state, that's when we realized 2016 the deep state existed. And, you know, the scariest thing to me, Stephen, is something called consent of the governed. The only reason we have a country right now that's moderately peaceful is we agree to abide by the laws, right? We agree to have this government. That's the whole point of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. So there are people, including myself, that still think, whether it's a prominent thought or it's, you know, less right now, that think, well, you know, maybe I don't think we should go along with this government. You know what I'm saying? So we're still there 10 years later. And, you know, that's my concern from a historical perspective.
It takes 90 seconds for this NASA-engineered AC cool down your room. It's smaller than a toaster, cools any room.
It's my concern from a historical perspective.
Yeah. Let me switch gears with you. I was one of the first YouTubers to break this story about how the left was trying to say that if Ghislaine Maxwell was the trafficker for Jeffrey Epstein, and he and Trump were friends, then maybe Melania Trump was the trafficker for Donald Trump. I don't think we can get people to buy in on that. What if we started saying that Trump bought Melania from Jeffrey Epstein? Well, that got back to the White House, and there was a threat of a lawsuit so big it would put the Daily Beast and others into bankruptcy. I just want my audience to know I don't ever lie to you guys. I always tell you the truth. So to see in the comments some of you guys saying that I was making this story up, I mean, so this is just breaking news. The Daily Beast has retracted their story attempting to link Trump to Epstein via Melania. They decided they didn't want to be bankrupted by President Trump. Daily Beast tried to claim Donald Trump met Melania through an Epstein-connected modeling agent. False. The Daily Beast is trash. And now you've got Donald Trump suing Rupert Murdoch and the Wall Street Journal and others for $20 billion. What are your thoughts on this? I also just wanted my audience to see the receipts that, like, I could be wrong in something. I try to be genuine, but I would never purposely mislead my audience.
Well, it's funny. Before we came on, you mentioned that story. I thought maybe I didn't know anything about it, but now that you pulled it up, so I actually am friends with Melania Trump's only personal advisor, and I was texting with him a couple days ago. He sent me this story and actually asked me if I could, we were talking about blowing. Realized that was the specific story related to it. I knew the Daily Beast had retracted it. They were forced to, and it's because Melania and them sued the crap out of the Daily Beast and threatened, like you were saying. And the thing I said to him was, you know what? I'm glad this is happening, but you know what? The takeaway for me is, the media gets away with this type of defamation all the time, and only if you're Donald Trump and a billionaire and powerful do you have the ability to threaten lawsuits to get the media to be honest and revise stuff. And it's just so disgusting and despicable. But you can't sue enough people. I mean, these types of things out there, it's a moral crisis in the media that they have no principle. It's like Lincoln talked about, appealing to our better angels, and what you have in the media, what you have in the Clinton campaign, all this stuff. It's like the worst demons have taken over.
Yeah. I mean, I get where some people in my audience, like, it's such an outrageous story. Like, of course, Stephen Gardner pumped this story for clicks. I don't need to do that. There's plenty of truth. So, I mean, the only other time I've seen this is when I said that Joe Biden abandoned American astronauts in space in order to cheat Donald Trump and Elon Musk out of, good karma. And that ended up being true, too. So, I wanted my audience to see, not only did Trump not buy Melania through Epstein, she was not trafficking children to Donald Trump. And that story has now been completely debunked. Speaking of Epstein, what are your thoughts on Ghislaine Maxwell saying, hey, if I give up all these details about Jeffrey Epstein, something the vast majority of Americans are saying that they want, I want to be let out of prison. Is that a good swap? I mean, I've been thinking about this as of course, I don't want to let someone that trafficked underage people for abusive situations. But at the same time, if you guys really want to know the truth, you might have to give up the lesser devil for the bigger devil. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm suspicious of this whole thing. We've just been misled for so long by so many people. We don't need to rehash it. You've talked about it on the show a million times. People get fired up. They'll get mad at me, mad at you, and I don't really care. But, let me just say this, and then I always do this with you, Steve, and I start before, and then I get to your question, but I have to. People have to know these things. The idea that, all these people were just going to be put in prison that were clients of Epstein was always a pipe dream. It doesn't happen in real life. It doesn't happen in other sex trafficking cases. Prove two things. One, that the client, right, the person that paid Epstein or whatever for the sex, it's hard to prove that they, one, knew the person was trafficked, and two, knew that they were underage. So that's just a reality here. So I'm just very frustrated with the whole thing. Plenty of blame to go around, but people's expectations are totally just warped. And we've been promised something that was never possible in the first place. So the idea now that we would say, okay, well, we already prosecuted you and you didn't come to any deal. You were covering stuff up. And now we're going to say, okay, well, yeah, now if you give us something, and now it's so politicized, right? So it's, theoretically, the Trump administration is running things. It's quote unquote Trump's DOJ, even though it's,
Just say it then, let there.
What if the only thing standing between you and a professional scoring career was the right mentor?
Is running things. It's quote unquote Trump's DOJ, even though it's, nonpartisan. So like you're competing. Okay, well, who's going to get her to say what or say a name? How do you know it's credible? How are you going to prove it? Because here's my point too, Stephen. We didn't intend to do this, but we have to. With Epstein, right, we have two names already that have been accused of being clients of Epstein, right? And they came from Virginia Giuffre. And her brother right now, by the way, is on TV having his moment, trying to attack Trump over this and help the Democrats so he can go screw himself, that guy. But Virginia Giuffre, she told us that Alan Dershowitz was one of the people that had sex with her. And she also gave the name Prince Andrew. So do you see where I'm going with this? We have two names. Alan Dershowitz threatened to sue her, and she said, well, maybe it wasn't Alan Dershowitz and I was mistaken. And then Prince Andrew, obviously, people assume he was there, but nothing has happened or is going to happen to him. So what's going to happen if you get 600 more names that are on the list from Ghislaine Maxwell? We have two. And I am not accusing either of those people necessarily of being guilty, obviously, but my point is, she said these are two people that had sex with me, raped me, whatever. And okay, so you get a list of people that Ghislaine Maxwell, like, are you going to prosecute that somehow? Like if she gives names? I mean, if she says, well, Bill Clinton was, what? Wait, we assume that Bill Clinton was there and was involved in stuff. Is he going to be prosecuted and go to prison? So I don't like what's happened to this. It's just become a political weapon of the left and the right now, where you're just trying to score political points for your team. And that's not what this was about. It should have been all along about the victims of abuse. Who were more Democrats screwing the young girls and clients of Epstein, or more Republicans? Because this is going to prove to you that Republicans are disgusting pedos, or the Democrats are the most disgusting. It's like, I don't like, we lost the plot, I think, with this in some extent. So I don't trust like Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't think it's right either. I mean, what can she give us that would warrant her walking free after what she did? Is there something that she could give us? I don't think there is.
No.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I'm more interested in the pedophile rings that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel are taking down right now. I mean, I read these stories and I'm like, man, they just liberated 12 children right now. And that story doesn't get any attention because they want to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. So I would like to get to the truth. My worry with Ghislaine Maxwell is she goes, I need immunity because I'm the only person that knows the story. And Congress goes, hey, she's the only one that knows the story. But then in her prison cell, she goes, hey, I'm the only one that knows the story. I could literally say whatever I want and ruin people's lives. But again, if there's no evidence, no tape, no nothing, like it's not going to go anywhere. Yeah. And she could damage real bad guys. She could also damage people that she's just making up names. So I don't know what the final outcome of that's going to be.
Yeah, well, I can see people writing in the comments right now, F you. But, this is real talk and real conversation. And, I'm an adult that, likes the big picture, and I like to live in reality. Is great. I was on, with Stacey Washington, your buddy Stacey Washington, who's great, on her show the other day. And we're talking about, similar thing. And she brought up your point. She's like, what about the current pedophile rings? What about these things that are happening right now? And I get it. Some people don't like that because, for them, Epstein represents the pinnacle of everything. And Epstein's the solution to our problems. And it's going to solve it forever. And that's not true. It's been blown up. I'm sorry to say this. Drew, I hate you. But, it's like it's outside in its actual relevance.
Yeah. Let me switch gears with you. You're out in California. Kamala Harris announces, I'm not going to run for governor, but she is gearing up to run for president of the United States. The next day that she announces that, she gets a reality check from CNN's data. Let's watch this and react.
Yeah, I would just say, hold your horses here. The chance that Kamala Harris is going to be the 2028 Democrat nominee, they don't look too good right now, to be perfectly honest with you. Chance of being the 2028 Democrat nominee.
What do the caveat of like what year we're currently in?
I believe we're in 2025, though. It kind of feels like 2045. There have been so many years it's just run so far. Look, Gavin Newsom is the favorite at 20%, according to the back money markets. Do not sleep on Ocasio-Cortez. AOC right up there at 15%. Buttigieg 9%. Shapiro 6%. Harris all the way down at 6%, basically in a tie for 4th place at this particular point. So if you have any ideas that Kamala Harris is passing up a potential gubernatorial run-in for 2026 in California and perhaps would be trading up for a presidential bid, the betting markets at this point, simply put, do not buy it.
Yeah. So the next day, she makes this big announcement. She's already going into fundraising mode without officially announcing. And they literally, CNN, her biggest base, comes out and says, "You're dead in the water before you even start." Your thoughts on that?
I mean, she's so delusional. I mean, she thinks she's Ronald Reagan, you know, she's going to come back and win in a landslide, and there's no chance. I mean, she was a terrible candidate in 2024. It was a absolutely desperate move by the Democrats, who didn't have anybody. I mean, their bench is so short, small. There's so few players there that they can even put. I mean, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is up there as the second right now. But, you know, Kamala Harris has always been a loser. It's just, you know, she's I mean, usually the media can create hype around someone. I mean, they really can. I mean, they did it with Barack Obama. People think Barack Obama was some like really popular president. Yeah, he actually wasn't, if you actually look at facts and history, especially when he ran for re-election. But the media, you know, can pump that out and, you know, make perception reality. I mean, Kamala Harris, the first time she tried to run for president, right, in 2020, I mean, she was like the first person to drop out. I mean, it was like, you know, you drop an ice cube in the Sahara Desert. I mean, that's how fast her ambitions for president, you know, melted. And she couldn't fundraise then for president. Nobody would give her money. That's why she had to drop out. Nobody likes her in California, her home state. So, I mean, Kamala Harris is like the only
commercial. Come on, let's go. Ain't time to take it. Bathroom.
They are getting this book banned. Get this while you still can. Let me show you page number 2.
This is like the only Democrat, or maybe specifically woman, that could possibly be less likable than Hillary Clinton. I mean, she makes Hillary Clinton seem like, I don't know, some kind of, you know, lovable Democrat option. I think that's how bad Kamala Harris is. And she's just stupid. I mean, that's the thing, too. I mean, she's dumb. I don't know if she has a drinking problem, but she seems drunk a lot. And she's got no chance. I mean, the governor would have been her best shot in California, because she could probably win, because any Democrat can typically win in California, the way things are set up and how goofy it is out here and corrupt. But, like, I want people to understand what the message is here. People in California, all right, Democrats in California, dislike Kamala Harris so much that they won't even choose her to be governor here when it's guaranteed. That's how little they like Kamala Harris.
That was my exact thought, Drew. I thought, if you are the most popular Democrat and you don't have confidence that you can win California, why are you running for president? Because if you don't win California as a Democrat, you don't win. Like, I would love for California to flip red. I believe it's more red than a lot of us believe. But now you've got Gavin Newsom this morning. He was on a show saying every single move Donald Trump makes California go a little bit more blue. So keep doing it, Donald Trump. You're making us bluer. I was like, I don't buy that. I don't believe that. So she's going to get slapped back into reality harder than Doug Emhoff slapped his girlfriend. Another story that I reported on that nobody wanted to cover. Anyway.
You were right about that too, yeah.
Yeah, I was. Yep. Drew, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to catch your show, follow you online, what links can I put down below?
There's the Drew Allen Show at Daily Clout, right? X is Drew Thomas Allen, and drewallen.substack.com is another link. You can always find me there.
Okay. I'll put those direct links so that people can find you easily. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too, brother. Thank you.
There's a reason they didn't want Tulsi Gabbard near the intelligence community. She just dropped a major truth bomb about what really happened during the 2020 election, and it goes straight to the top. Before we break it all down, be sure to like, comment, and join Explain America. We rely on you to keep common sense journalism alive. Now here's what we learned. In a stunning moment during a cabinet meeting earlier this year, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard looked President Trump in the eye and told him what Americans have long suspected. The federal government knew that electronic voting systems were vulnerable before the 2020 election, and they kept it quiet. Tulsi confirmed that a whistleblower inside CISA, the agency tasked with securing critical infrastructure, including elections, came forward with internal documentation showing glaring weaknesses in our voting tech. This wasn't speculation. It was known and documented, and it was ignored. In her words, quote, "We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time, vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast," unquote. Let that sink in. That was the Director of National Intelligence. That wasn't some blogger. It is really a serious matter, and she is treating it with the seriousness that it deserves. But action. The federal government, under Joe Biden's transition team and the remnants of the Obama-era security structure, chose silence. They kept the public in the dark while millions cast votes on systems that may not have been secure. On Benny Johnson's show, Gabbard gave more to the story.
Meeting that has stuck with our audience, and they'd really love an update on it. And it's about the 2020 election. And you were talking about the security of that election, and you were telling President Trump that there's been evidence that has been uncovered of potential breaches. I'm not exactly certain, but I'd love a follow-up on this. Here's the moment right here, and perhaps do you have any updates on the 2020 election or anything that you've found, Director?
The point that I was making there in the cabinet meeting was early discovery that I had seen from a whistleblower who came forward, who was working under CISA at that time, which is responsible for critical infrastructure and trying to protect against cyber vulnerabilities, critical infrastructure, including, of course, the integrity of our election systems. And what was interesting was seeing how this whistleblower brought forward information that CISA at that time, the federal government, was aware of vulnerabilities in our election machines, but they chose not to disclose that information to the American people or to the administration at that time. This is an area, of course, of critical importance, once again, for the American people to have faith in the integrity of our elections and that it is their voice that is heard through these elections. We're continuing to investigate this, and when we have information that we're ready to release, you'll hear about it.
Okay, so we're going to be hearing more on the 2020 election and some critical vulnerabilities.
Yes.
Why would the same agencies that scream about foreign interference bury critical vulnerabilities in voting tech? And here's the kicker. Tulsi says more is coming. This isn't over. Her office is actively reviewing new intelligence, and according to her, they plan to make additional findings public. Quote, "When we have information that we are ready to release, you'll hear about it," unquote. So this is not just about one election. It's about trust in our elections. It's about power. It's about a government that chose a narrative over transparency when it mattered most. Tulsi's team is now pushing hard for one thing, a nationwide return to paper balance. Not because it's trendy or popular, because it's the only way to ensure confidence in our democratic process when machines can't always be trusted. This is Kyle Becker with Explain America. Thank you for watching.
Restaurant store.
30 chairs, non-squeak.
Restaurant store.
15 non-wobbly tables.
Restaurant store.
Oh boy.
Someone that worked for Biden and was rigging the numbers in Biden's favor to make him look good. This was long overdue, but Trump has finally done it. President Trump floats an amazing idea that would help millions and millions of Americans. We also now have text messages about how Hillary Clinton would strategically use then Vice President Joe Biden to sow seeds of doubt about Donald Trump and his connection to Russia. Lastly, Trump tells Israel, you must do more to get food and water to Palestinians immediately to avoid starving people. Thank you so much for liking and sharing these videos. Let's jump right in. President Trump announced a tariff hike on select Canadian imports. They messed around and found out. Instead of a 25% tariff, he's automatically increased it to 35% effective today. Products under the USMCA will remain exempt. The White House has accused Canada of failing to help stem the flow of fentanyl into the United States and retaliated against Trump's enforcement action. President Trump also criticized Canada for recognizing a Palestinian state until this war is over, claiming it hinders his ability to do trade talks, and even suggested he might need to annex Canada in the future, to which Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney immediately shut down that idea. In a broader move, President Trump signed tariffs on dozens of countries with a base rate of 10%. However, on certain areas like Syria, Iraq, India, and Brazil, it is much higher. Now, separately, the Senate Appropriation Committee overwhelmingly rejected Trump's proposed 40% cut to NIH, instead increasing their budget by $400 million. The committee also blocked plans to consolidate the 27 institutions into 8 or 9 institutions and overhauled the granting system. So I guess they wanted to give themselves more money. That may end up in court. Now, it was recently brought to President Trump's attention that Big Pharma wasn't lowering drug prices for Americans and complying with Trump's previously signed executive order. President Trump has gone to bat for the American people. He's basically said, Big Pharma, you are now on notice. So he goes through this. I won't read all of it, but basically reminding them that they need to lower their prices. If they're giving a favored nation better drug prices than America, they need to immediately drop those prices. He then threatened them, saying, are you going to betray an executive order from the sitting president of the United States of America? This order went out months ago. You need to comply, or else I'm going to make doing business in the United States extremely expensive. And is on top of this, fighting for the American people. Now, in May of 25, that's when President Trump major pharmaceutical companies, including Pfizer, Eli Lilly, and others, to lower drug prices to the most favored nation policy. I will continue to update you on this, but they're costing Medicaid, Medicare, and private insurance companies billions and billions of unnecessary dollars. And he's saying, I will use every tool in my arsenal if you fail to comply. A whistleblower has come forward alleging that they were pressured by supervisors to endorse the Obama-era Russian collusion fake story and to prop up the Steele dossier. According to the whistleblower, their promotion was made contingent upon signing their name to the fake Russian story. The assessment reportedly relied on selective Russian media while ignoring the truth. Citing ethics concerns, the whistleblower refused and attempted to alert more than a dozen government bodies, including the Inspector General and Special Counsel John Durham. Now he's connected with DNI Tulsi Gabbard. She has invoked whistleblower protection for this man or woman and confirmed the allegations are true. More will be coming out about this. Now, Tulsi Gabbard commended the whistleblower by saying, "Thank you for your integrity and your courage." This courageous whistleblower and others are coming forward now, putting their own well-being on the line to defend our democratic republic, ensure people know the truth, and hold those responsible accountable. Now, John Solomon, somebody that I've been sharing his information with you all week, just received a new update. He says that they have text messages that showed the first thing Hillary was going to do was turn to then Vice President Joe Biden to plant ideas or seeds of doubt in the minds of the American people. Let me go ahead and roll that for you, and then we will watch it together.
This is John Solomon. Let's start with the breaking news, and I believe you might have a little bit of news to break either tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, I do. We'll lean into it right now. So this email was, and these intercepts were part of a very secret U.S. program where we spy on our enemies. And the government has the ability to determine if this email is real, but technology it would have to reveal would be very sensitive. And so there is a balancing act that has played out here in the last few weeks as people decided what to do with this. This is an explosive piece of evidence, but it's just a piece of evidence. We have to now, in the government, find out, did it really happen this way? But I will tell you something that did happen in the summer of 16. U.S. intelligence, when they first intercepted this, began to look at some other things. Could this be true? Could the Russians really have something? Have they stumbled onto a plot? One of the things they intercepted were text messages that showed that the first thing Hillary Clinton was going to do was to turn to Vice President Joe Biden and see if he would take the first blow against Donald Trump. Would he go out right in the middle of July and say, I think Donald Trump's got a Russia problem? Well, they watched that happen in real time. First in 2 interviews, then at a speech at the Democratic National Committee. It led some of our U.S. intelligence analysts to believe that what the Russians had captured was an ongoing plot and that it was really going on. And then a few days later, the FBI opens up, just like the Russian intelligence suggested. What we are sadly lacking is a complete investigation. This 10 years later, Chris Wray's FBI, John Durham's investigation, the U.S. Intelligence Committee, James Comey never fully investigated this. We could authenticate this if we put our elbow grease into it. The government owes us an answer to find out if this is all true. But Joe Biden did make that. Tomorrow morning, we're going to show you how Joe Biden's actions match what the Russian intelligence was predicting would happen.
Oh, come on.
If you're a man whose eyes make you look perpetually exhausted, don't watch this unless you're ready to change everything.
Okay, so these new text messages show that the first thing that Hillary Clinton was planning to do was to use sleepy Joe Biden as a puppet to go out and start to kick off the Russia, fake Russia story. So pretty crazy indeed. All right, I also have a great clip from Benny Johnson, someone who's been on the show, as well as former Congressman Matt Gaetz, who I'm trying to get on the show. And Gaetz was the guy that got some of these people to lie to the government, which is a big no-no. So let me pull that up on the screen, and then we'll go ahead and watch that one together. Here we go.
Can you give us a honest man's opinion, having seen the inside of this machine and knowing so very closely the Trump team and the president himself? What's going to happen? Like, prepare our audience, right? Like, what's going to happen?
Right. So if you're Clapper or Brennan or Comey or Obama, every time the phone rings, every time there's a knock at the door, every time you hear the leaves rustle on your stoop, you're wondering whether or not it's somebody serving you a subpoena or giving you notice of service, that you're going to have to provide documents and potentially testimony to a grand jury. Decisions will have to be made by some really smart prosecutors like Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche about who to flip, who to give immunity to, that will be the narrator of this great conspiracy. Whenever you have a major conspiracy trial, you have to have a great narrator. And who's that going to be? Who maybe wants the opportunity to participate in the proceedings in that way? That's the next thing coming. The subpoenas, and then who flips.
And one more time, I'm not a betting man, but please handicap for us, Matt. Do you expect people will go to prison for this?
Well, look, I think that it's always difficult to get in front of the prosecutors who have to make some of these charging decisions, but a lot of that's going to come down to venue. I don't know whether or not some of these things happened outside of D.C. in jurisdictions where you can get a fair shake. We already had Andrew McCabe strung up, ready to go on lying to Congress, and there wasn't a grand jury that would even indict him in Washington, D.C. because of the nature of that deeply corrupt place. So I think that the venue question is what that will turn on.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'll take mugshots for right now. You know, I'll start with the low-hanging fruit, man. I'll take the mugshots.
Just nice to, hey, by the way, just nice to get the Durham annex here in 2025. Thank goodness. I wonder what annexes we're going to be getting in 2035, Benny. Maybe that's when we'll get the Benny Johnson Tim Pool annex. We'll wait till 2035 and learn.
That's right. I've been asking, what a filthy, dirty op, man. What a filthy, dirty op. I'm telling you, that thing stinks to high heavens.
All right. So Matt Gaetz believes there is meat on this bone, but he believes it will have more to do with the venue, meaning if this happens in Washington, D.C., the rats in D.C., they're going to let these guys get away with crimes. Yep. If they do it down in Florida or some other place, there is a great chance that we will see something really big. Now, sadly, when Trump was indicted and arrested, Hillary Clinton went on live TV and laughed at him and mocked him. And it's embarrassing, but let me just go ahead and remind you of what she did and why we should all want to see the same happen to her, because this
Are wondering what Hillary Rodham Clinton is thinking watching things unfold in Georgia. She is the former Democratic presidential nominee, U.S. Senator from New York and Secretary of State. I should tell you, she has a new essay out.
Oh, I can't believe this.
Yeah, this is not the circumstances in which I expected to be talking to you.
Nor me, Rachel. It's always good to talk to you, but honestly, I didn't think that it would be under these circumstances. Yet another set of indictments.
This is something, this is becoming like a skill set. Like in the news business, you say like, oh, I've covered Olympics or I've covered a campaign. Now it's, you know, those of us who've covered 4 indictments. Do you feel satisfaction in that? You warned the country essentially that he was going to try to end democracy, but most of the country didn't believe you.
Well, it's hard to believe. I don't feel any satisfaction. I feel great, just great, profound sadness.
Oh, come on. She is such a liar. Oh, I don't feel any satisfaction. You just laughed. You just mocked. You're like, wow, finally, he's being held accountable for the stories I invented. You are a wicked human being. So don't feel bad for Hillary Clinton. If she gets arrested, if she gets a mugshot, I guarantee you she won't raise $10 million off of her mugshot like Trump did, because we all knew that Trump was innocent, but she is not innocent. And it's just absolutely gross to me what these people are doing. Now, this is what President Trump put out early today. The Russia hoax is now totally undisputed. The facts are all there in black and white. It is the biggest scandal in American history. The perpetrators of this crime must pay a big price. This can never be allowed to happen again. I'm telling you, he regrets not locking Hillary Clinton up, and she does not regret all of the horrible stuff that she put him through, all of those lies. And so I just don't feel bad for her at all. All right, now, do you own a business? Do you want to get more leads and make more money? The marketing and lead acquisition game has changed so much in the last few years. Let's be honest. Marketing and sales are the engine to making money with a business. Business coach Alex Alberon will show you how to strategically grow your business. We'll show you how to create a bigger email list. We'll show you how to get more leads, build an online presence, extend your social media, build out a website, and increase your reach. All of this leads to more money. He will focus on key ideas specific to your business on how to generate more leads and make more money. Now, I've arranged with him from my community to get you a free consultation. Just give him a call. I'm going to leave a website down below. You can go down there, sign up for that free consultation. He'll walk you through his program, how he helps you get more leads and make more money. I will, again, leave that down below for you to check out.
Let's go.
I serve my country, and now I carry legally everywhere I go. Here's how. National Concealed Carry Reciprocity is here, meaning that if you got yourself a valid CCW permit, every state's got to recognize it, just like a driver's license. How about that? It's about time we got some good...
Yeah.
Everything.
All right, now, President Trump has finally fired the loser that lied over and over and over again about Biden's economy and the incredible jobs numbers that he was creating every single month. Let me show you exactly what President Trump had to say about this person, because it's not kind, and it was long overdue that this person be let go. So, breaking news, President Trump fires Commissioner job reports heavily revised down. President Trump said, I was just informed that our country's job numbers are being produced by a Biden appointee, Dr. Eric McEntarfer, the Commissioner of Labor Statistics, who faked the jobs numbers before the election to try and boost Kamala's chances of victory. This is the same Bureau of Labor Statistics that overstated the jobs growth in March 2024 by approximately 818,000 jobs, and then again right before the 2024 presidential election in August and in September by 112,000. These were records. No one can be that wrong. We need accurate job numbers. I have directed my team to fire this Biden political appointee immediately. She will be replaced with someone much more competent and qualified. Important numbers like this must be fair and accurate. They can't be manipulated for political purposes. McEntarfer said there was only 73,000 jobs added, but more importantly, that's a major mistake made by them. 258,000 jobs downward in the prior 2 months. Similar things happened in the first part of the year, always to be negative. The economy is booming under Trump, despite a Fed that also plays games, this time with interest rates, where they lowered them twice and substantially just before the presidential election. I assume in the hopes of getting Kamala elected. And how did that work out, Jerome Too Late Powell? Should be put out to pasture. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, I remember covering these stories on your behalf where it was like Biden was hitting home run after home run after home run. And yet in the news and the media, people were saying, I can't afford my bills. I can't find a job. I feel like I'm competing against illegal immigrants. I just can't seem to get ahead. Well, that's because they were lying. They lied about over 800,000 jobs. Well, President Trump, he's putting out the truth. Look at this. Native-born jobs are skyrocketing. Foreign-born jobs are plummeting. In the last few months, native, meaning U.S. citizens, up 1.8 million jobs. Foreigners down 1.5 million. This means that Americans are getting back to work. We're taking the jobs they say that nobody wants, and we're doing the work. And you cannot fake these numbers. This is from Fred. You can see jobs up under Trump, jobs for illegal immigrants down. So this is huge. President Trump is literally changing America. And fired. Fire the liar, right? And just absolutely incredible. All right, now I wanted to share an idea that President Trump has floated. I think it's incredible. President Trump's proposal to eliminate capital gains tax on home sales aims to stimulate the U.S. housing market by removing taxes on profits exceeding $250,000 for a single person and $500,000 for a married couple or families. Especially seniors and long-term homeowners could retain more equity, enhancing their own financial security. This incentivizes selling, particularly for those hesitant due to tax burdens, increasing housing inventory and easing shortages. More sales could boost construction, real estate services, and related industries, potentially driving economic growth. However, critics argue it may disproportionately benefit wealthier households and reduce federal revenue, possibly offsetting broad economic gains. However, that first part is not true. It doesn't disproportionately benefit the wealthy because anything over $500,000 has to pay taxes, which means the wealthy are paying the taxes while lower income and middle class families get all of the benefit. There are 113 million homes in America. This would benefit generations of people. Imagine selling your home and not having to immediately fork over a huge percentage of your gains to the government. I mean, gosh, none of us would mind paying taxes if they didn't spend the money on stupid stuff. Let me know in the comments. Do you want to pay taxes to the government on your home equity?
Let this soft mineral melt under your tongue to improve vision so you can say goodbye to your optometrist.
Come on.
Just for good. Did you know there is a natural way to enhance your eyes?
To the government on your home equity. I know I don't. All right, now in some international news, President Trump has called on Hamas to immediately surrender and release hostages. He says it's the fastest way to end your humanitarian crisis in Gaza. He wrote, the fastest way to end the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is for Hamas to surrender and release the hostages. His message comes after ceasefire talks have stalled. So Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, has been traveling back and forth to Israel to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu and also leaders of Hamas to try to end this. Ceasefire discussions hit a deadlock last week after Israel responded to Hamas's amendment on a U.S.-backed proposal involving a 60-day truce in exchange for prisoners. Israeli officials have hinted at the possible annexation of parts of Gaza if the stalemate continues, while Netanyahu remains firm on demands to disarm Hamas and dismantle its leadership. Amid escalating famine conditions, Israel has begun implementing a food, water, and supplies can get in. President Trump has urged Israel, the United States, and international partners to take advantage of this and ramp up the amount of food and water getting in so that we can avoid a starvation crisis. All right, that's my update for today. Let me know what you think about all of this. You guys, it's time for Hillary Clinton to be arrested, mugshot, perp walked, and indicted. And then let a jury of her peers go through and tell us whether she is guilty or not. All the evidence is there. It just needs to happen. All right, I love you guys. If you could, give this video a like so that YouTube will share it with more people. I'm competing against ABC, CBS, MSNBC, not really CNN, but I want to get the truth out to more and more people. So if you could, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share with family and friends. Stay amazing, and I will see you on the next video.
Speaker Mike Johnson and John Thune are trying to go into recess, and Trump is saying, you get to work. You don't take August off. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. There's so many ins and outs and rules on this complicated Senate argument of what's happening where that I went and did research to make it make sense to me, and now I'm going to make it make sense for you. Okay, this is about as simple as I can do to make these rules work. You know, the rules in the Senate, this is insane how that place operates, but it is very important with Trump's agenda and with where America is going. I believe, you know, all of MAGA, a lot of it hinges on what the Senate can do. So there's Trump, he's the superstar. Senate is where all the complicated rules go, what stays and what doesn't. Let me just dive in and explain. Hope you guys subscribe if you like this kind of content. We're going to have some fun together and learn.
This is what Ivy League universities you can get into with a 3.6 GPA.
90% of students with a 4.0 plus GPAs get
earned. It'll all make sense, I promise. This shouldn't be like homework. This should be a lot of fun. So this is Donald Trump's post. He says the Senate, Mike Johnson, must stay in session. This might divide MAGA, so I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. What do you think? I mean, I'm siding with Trump squarely on this one. The Senate must stay in session, taking no recess until the entire executive calendar is clear. That's Trump's calendar is clear. Now, I saw videos of Thune saying that they want to take a recess and Mike Johnson saying he's going to take some time off and he's going to be traveling around the world meeting with all these world leaders and doing all this political stuff. Big mistake from both Thune and Mike Johnson. Okay, big mistake. Trump continues, we have to save our country from the lunatic left. And that is the bottom line of everything. Absolutely true. Republicans, for the health and safety of the United States, do your job, all caps, and confirm all nominees. They should not be forced to wait. Thank you for your attention on this matter. Now, that is a pretty straightforward command to Trump. I guarantee you he is on the phone with Thune and Mike Johnson, but that's who he's fighting, okay? They're going, look, we've worked hard. We need our time off. I'm like, bro, America is about to die. It is going to die. You have about 1 year before the 2026 midterms, and both of your majorities could get sopped up and lost, and Trump will get impeached, you morons. Now, you guys all know I'm a huge fan of Mike Johnson. Ain't no bigger fan of Mike Johnson and defender of him than me. But it doesn't mean I just support everything he does. If he does a screw up like this, I'll call him out and go, Mike Johnson, you are being a complete wussy, ineffective screw up. If you take this recess, it's like we have them on their back heels. You do not take the boot off the neck of the Democrats until that whole concept, until that whole movement is just done in the poo-poo, rotting in the tar pits, unable to escape forever. Your job is not done. You're not going to Disneyland. I know that you guys are sacrificing time with your family, but the American people have sacrificed far more than you. They nearly destroyed the country. Get to work. This is an emergency, and that's why I'm doing a video on this. Guys, this is going to be great. You're going to learn so much, okay? This is all about that. So that post sent a shockwave out, right, throughout all of the internet and MAGA. This is Trump using very few words to have giant influence on the Senate. It's a direct call to the Senate Republicans to prioritize confirming Trump's pending nominees. These are judges. These are every kind of job you can imagine, the VA. And so he wants them okayed during the August break. Now, this is going to trigger a whole lot of rules, okay? In essence, he's pressuring them to clear the, quote, executive calendar, the Senate's list of presidential nominations that include, these are nominations he's done for judges, which we need Republican, conservative, MAGA judges placed, his ambassadors, cabinet officials, so that would be like Jeanine Pirro, and other executive roles before adjourning. This comes amid a backlog of over 100 nominees. Remember, the Democrats are not giving him his nominees. They're flat out saying no, including around 50 federal judges. So all of us who've complained about Judge Boasberg, he's the kind of judge that we need to offset with Trump's appointments that have been stalled largely by Democrat procedural tactics like holds and slow walking debates. That's like Cory Booker and doing their long debates so they can prevent, they're waiting for this session to go out this month in August. Trump's frustration stems from the Senate's inefficiency under Republican control. That goes to Thune and Mike Johnson, viewing it as a betrayal that hampers his ability to, quote, save our country from the lunatic left, unquote, by fully staffing his administration and loyal appointees, making them permanent. From a pro-Trump's perspective, this is classic swamp behavior. Establishment Republicans like Senate Majority Leader John Thune are putting their vacations ahead of America's needs, allowing Democrats to run out the clock and weaken the Trump agenda. You know what? It's go time for the right. I've worked in video games on 2 games, Earthworm Jim, I created, but we had to work every day on that game. This is back when I was 27 years old. Of course, I'd probably die if I did this now, but we worked 18-hour days, including Saturdays and Sundays. On the Neverhood, which I did through DreamWorks, I was the owner of that company, so I put beds in the lobby. So my team finished a video game in a year that would take any other team 2 years. Why? Because it was go time. Company depended on it. We worked on Sundays even, and I hardly ever work on the Sabbath. We had a joke that we got from Jeffrey Katzenberg. If you don't bother coming in on Sunday, don't bother coming in on Monday. That's what we like, implying that you're fired. And that's what Trump is saying. He's going, look, I know you guys have been working hard for a bunch of soft, wussy Republicans, but now you're not taking August off. America, just like my company was at stake, America's at stake. It's time for you guys to buy beds, put them in your office, stay in Washington, do not go home, do not go on vacation. And I'm telling you guys to reach out to Thune and Johnson and start telling them, stay and do your job to save America. Okay? Right. The executive calendar backlog isn't just bureaucratic red tape. It's a direct threat to Trump's mission to make America great again. And here's why it matters. The judicial overhaul. Number 1, Trump has nominated conservative judges to counter the activist liberal lunatic judges like Boasberg on the bench. So Obama got his appointments, Biden got his appointments, and Trump has not gotten his appointments to offset them, meaning the will of the American people has not influenced our judges yet, the way that the Democrats have. Delays mean more time for and election integrity. Clearing these would lock in Trump's legacy on the courts for decades. If you want to know why Sidney Powell put up the Kraken and started questioning elections, and none of the cases were even considered, it's because there weren't enough conservative judges out there to even consider those cases. That's the long-term repercussions on election integrity, gun rights, free speech. This is an emergency. And then unconfirmed nominees include key roles in agencies like the VA, the Justice Department, like a Jack Smith appointment, and Foreign Post. Without them, Trump's policies on border security, energy independence, and draining the swamp grind to a halt. Democrats are happy to obstruct, and that's what I will also remind Thune and Johnson of. The Democrats agree with you that there should be a recess, knowing it buys time for their resistance. And then finally, now this is a weird rule. This is the first rule that we have to learn, okay? If the Senate fully recesses for more than 10 days without pro forma sessions. I'll tell you what a pro forma session is in a minute. But if the Senate fully recesses, then it triggers Trump's ability to appoint nominees temporarily without confirmation, bypassing delays. These appointments, called recess appointments, serve until the end of the next Senate session, which if the Senate doesn't go back into session, it could get all the way through 2026, well into next year. But if Thune opts out for pro control away from President Trump making recess appointments by he gavels every few days. He goes in and just hits the gavel and goes, we're in session. And it's a technicality, right? So that 10-day trigger doesn't happen that allows Trump to make his recess appointments. So Trump loses his tool, and MAGA, we're seeing this as a deliberate sabotage by John Thune. Okay. I don't throw that accusation around lightly. I love, in general, the work that Thune does. But, dude, you got to give up that gavel, go into a full recess for 10 days and let Trump make his recess appointments. All of these things can just be greenlit overnight. And so Thune is saying, no, we want to keep our authority of advise and consent. That's okay. Separation of power. Senate wants to keep that. House wants to keep that. Then don't just go in and run your gavel every 3 days. Get to work. So Thune has agreed to leave the session open a few days more before they take a recess, and they might continue to extend it longer and longer. Okay. The broader agenda, the Senate's pushing Trump's big, beautiful bill on taxes, spending cuts, and immigration, but nominees are part of that package. Remember, he called some out in the big, beautiful bill package. A prolonged fight could spill into fall funding. That is, the funding of the big, beautiful bill may not be complete by fall. If they take this time off in August, big mistake. You guys cannot go on vacation. Risking shutdowns that Democrats would blame. Exposes rhinos who talk tough but fold. Republicans who talk tough but fold. Mike Johnson, get in there. Come. No vacation for you. Trump supporters are fired up with calls to get loud and pressure senators. If unresolved, it could fuel infighting and hurt the GOP turnout in future elections. This is why we lose. It looks like we lose our teeth. Now, let me get to this one. Here's John Thune. This is about all the swirl surrounding this issue. This is July 26th, okay? So this is like a week ago. Trump calls out Thune. Senate plans to take a 39-day recess starting August 1st. That's today, with 135 Trump nominees backlogged and 50 open federal judge positions. Johnson and Thune plan to convene and adjourn every 4 or 5 days. That's that little pro forma recess. It's a fake recess. They hit the gavel and do nothing. Now, here's a claim, because Thomas Massey put out a lie that Speaker Johnson and Senate Leader John Thune will block any recess appointments, okay? So that's if they indeed hit that gavel every 3 days and do not trigger that 10-day vacation that allows Trump to make recess appointments. Thomas Massey claimed, and this guy says that's a lie. First time GOP would block their own president if Thune says Congress is in session. But Mike Johnson disagrees. This is going into the rules of why all this is happening. If Thune says Congress is in session, but Johnson disagrees, the president may adjourn both houses and make recess appointments. So now you don't need Thune and Johnson to agree. You just need Trump's boy, Mike Johnson, to disagree and say we're not in session. And then that will allow Trump to make his recess appointments. The process for Congress to go into recess and the potential for a president to override a Senate pro forma session to make recess appointments involves specific constitutional and procedural steps. That's why all this is so complicated, as well as historical and legal context. Below is a concise explanation of the process. Now, here's I'm only going to read some of this, guys, because this is getting, pretty arcane. Congress going into recess, number 1. Constitutional basis, Article 1, Section 5, Clause 4 of the U.S. Constitution states that neither the House nor the Senate may adjourn for more than 3 days without the consent of the other chamber. This governs how Congress enters a recess. Process for recess. Both chambers must agree to adjourn via a concurrent resolution for mutual consent. If agreement is reached, Congress enters a recess for a specified period. If one chamber, example, the Senate or Mike Johnson, wants to stay in session or hold pro forma sessions, that's what Thune wants, minimal sessions to avoid a formal recess, it can do so, complicating recess appointments, pro forma sessions and their purpose. Definition. We already went over pro forma. Presidential recess appointments, conditions of recess appointments. These are all listed out. Now, overriding the pro forma session. Recess appointments are valid only during recesses of 10 days or longer, except in extraordinary circumstances. Here's presidential adjournment power under Article 2, Section 3. The president may, in cases of disagreement between the House and the Senate over adjournment, quote, adjourn them to such time as he shall think proper, unquote. So if they disagree, Trump can come in and adjourn them and basically call his own recess. Okay, this rare power could theoretically be used to force a recess, allowing recess appointments. However, this power has never been used in U.S. history. So that's a loophole that we're finding. Now, here's Mike Davis, who we love. He says justice is coming. I'm going to read a lot more from the Senate cloakroom, this tweet, because this tells you exactly what the Senate is doing from the cloakroom, from the closet, from inside the smoky rooms. The cloakroom posts, Leader John Thune filed cloture on executive calendar number 322, Jeanine Pirro, to be the United States Attorney for the D.C. for the term of 4 years. Senate cloakroom. 5-1 Jason Redding Quinones to be the United States Attorney for the Southern District of Florida for the term of 4 years. So there's a judge. This is John Thune working as fast as he can because he's trying to extend it a couple days and give Trump some of his boys, some of his picks. He's going, let's just try, the normal way and get some stuff done. Now, recent action includes 2 roll call votes on July 30th. That was 2 days ago, confirming nominees like Sam Brown, the VA undersecretary, and others. But that's just a drop in the bucket. Dozens remain. Thune is negotiating with Democrats for a deal to fast-track some via unanimous consent or voice votes, but Trump wants all or nothing, meaning he wants the full recess and have it go up to 10 days so he can make his appointments. The traditional August recess starts this week, but Thune plans to extend sessions a few days into next week for more votes. Trump sees this as a half measure, either stay until it's done or recess fully for his appointments, recess appointments. Now we're going to go into this whole battle with Democrats that are mostly cheering from the sidelines as they benefit from delays. I just want to remind Mike Johnson, delays benefit the Democrats. Now let's go here. Look at this. Here's that Senate cloakroom. What this is, and I'm going to hit refresh because these are coming up every minute now. They're giving you a play-by-play. This is, look, we can go into hours ago, but this is 20 minutes ago. Votes scheduled at 2:15 today. The Senate will proceed on 2 roll call votes on the following. Confirmation of executive calendar number 90. That's Brian Nesvik, director of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. Motion to invoke cloture on this calendar. Luigi Rinaldi to be ambassador secretary and plenipotentiary of the U.S. of America, Oriental Republic of Uruguay. Here's one that's confirmed of executive calendar. This is Casey Mulligan to be Chief Counsel for Advocacy, Small Business Administration. Here's another one, Casey Mulligan to be Chief Counsel for Advocacy, Small Business Administration. Oh, that they're doing step by step. So it went from now voting to confirmed. Here's another one, now voting for Brian Nesvik to be director of the Fish and Wildlife, and then he was invoked 55-41. Motion to invoke cloture Let's go down a little farther. Here is 11 a.m. on Friday, August 1st. The Senate will proceed on 2 roll call votes. That's the Fish and Wildlife one, just so you can see how slow this goes. Look at this one. Here's one from 14 hours ago. Military promotions confirmed by unanimous consent. Executive calendar 325 through 40 and all nominations on the Secretary's desk in the Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, Marine Corps, Navy, and Space Force, with the exception of PN 89. So we find out who PN 89 is. Here's Leader Thune filed cloture on executive calendar on Marcus Molinaro to be Federal Transit Administrator. Here's the Assistant Tech Secretary of the U.S. Army. Here's National Cyber Director. Here's John Arrigo to be the Ambassador to the Portuguese Republic. Catherine Hansard, the Chief Financial Officer. So now you guys are getting an idea of just how deep and clandestine all this stuff is. And I'll give you this final rundown, is this cool grid I had Grok make for us. So very kind of them. This shows who's on what side, what's their position, and why they're involved. This is my MAGA opinion on this. So look, here's the Republicans are the who. These are the pro-stay, and they don't want to recess, and they align with Trump. That is, Donald Trump is on this side. Senator Mike Lee, who's a Republican from Utah, we like him. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin, we like him. And there's influencers like Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon, so you know what side they're on. They want to demand a full session under calendar cleared. If not, push for real recess to enable Trump's appointments. That's what we want, all or nothing. Stay and do your job, Mike Johnson and Thune, or go full recess and don't do this gavel every 3 days thing where you don't approve anyone. That's BS. And then over on the right, this is true MAGA warriors fighting the establishment. Trump called out the Senate directly. Lee and Johnson are leading the charge to cancel recess or force appointments. Now, here's the Republicans who are pro-recess and hesitant to stay. That is, they want that pro forma recess that allows them to come and do the gavel. Okay, and they're in opposition to Trump. Who are they? Senator John Thune, Republican of SD, Majority Leader, and Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican, Louisiana, for the House. Those are the 2 leaders that are opposing Trump. So Mike Johnson, if you're Trump's buddy, and that's my allegation I've made about you, this is where you prove it. And you need to really do this. And I'm going to tweet to Mike Johnson, stay in session. You need to work hard to save America, or, I'm going to have some words for you. They favor recess with pro forma sessions to block appointments, open to short extension, but not the full cancellation. So Johnson has, quote, tossed in the towel on the House side, signaling broader GOP fatigue. That's what I'm going to mention to him on Twitter. What do you mean you threw in the towel? Get to work. You know what? I'm working. I worked all through my vacation, 2 weeks in San Diego last week. I put out 4 videos a day. I worked on my vacation. Work. Get to work. The establishment sellouts prioritizing vacations over America is what we're going to say. Thune met with Trump, but is defying him by negotiating with Dems and planning pro forma to neuter the recess powers. Speaker Mike Johnson, as House Leader, influences overall GOP strategy, but wants recess, showing weak leadership. And then what are the Democrats doing? This is most important. Democrats, they're pro-recess and obstruct confirmations. Chuck Schumer and Minority Leader, other Dem senators holding filibusters, they want a recess to delay Trump's agenda, so they want Thune to do that gavel every 3 days. They oppose fast-tracking nominees. That's what we need. And if they oppose it, that's what we want. I want them to go into a full recess for 10 days and let Trump do this. Radical leftists stalling to protect their deep state allies. They're wearing down Republicans with procedural games, hoping to run out the clock on Trump's term. Democrats are smart. I get why they're doing this. It's effective. Why in the world is Thune and Mike Johnson doing the same thing as what the Democrats want? That's what we're tweeting to them today, guys. Pass this around to all your friends. Do reach out to Mike Johnson and Thune, either on Twitter or call their offices. I'm Doug in Exile. Subscribe.
Supplies are low, deliveries are late. You can scream all day, or you can try the...
Let's go into what has been released and what is still yet to come. As I look at the stuff that is, in the declassified documents of Russiagate, it confirms what many of us have already known. Are you surprised at anything at the media not reporting any of this? I mean, we've known a lot of this, but now the media is absolutely silent on it. And people seem to be deleting posts and no longer commenting online. What's happening?
Yes. I am not surprised that the mainstream media is refusing to cover this. And if they do mention it, their approach is to try to diminish the effect and the impact of the revelations, the historic revelations that were found in the documents that we declassified and released, or to try to bring voice to detractors and critics who also just say, oh, well, this is bizarre or this is crazy. But when you actually look at the coverage and you look at some of the comments and the quotes that the mainstream media may be choosing to publish or highlight, they're not actually getting after the very specific pieces of evidence that were released that quote people like John Brennan, who was the CIA director, and James Clapper, who was Obama's director of national intelligence. They are not giving voice to the intelligence professionals who, in these reports that we released, were protesting against the very malicious actions that people like Brennan and Clapper were taking at President Obama's direction to create this intelligence assessment that was filled with falsehoods. They're not giving voice to these intelligence professionals because they recognize that it would push forward a very inconvenient truth for the mainstream media because it exposes their complicity in pushing this lie and this hoax from not only day one, but throughout President Trump's entire first administration.
And all of these people are still, Brennan, Clapper, they have been the source on so many things, and they're in with the media. And I wonder if this is just part of more of the same, that they're asking them, is there anything to this? And they say, no, there's not. In fact, it's a whatever. And then I also wonder, how many people are you surrounded by that are still part of that old system?
It's documents, going through them, declassifying and releasing them. We are learning more about who is actually directly involved and implicated in this. We're learning more, loudly protesting against it, recognizing how wrong it was. We have whistleblowers coming forward with their own documentation of their protests and their unwillingness to go along with this. So yes, there are people who are still working within the intelligence community who had a hand in this. As we are identifying them, it will give us the opportunity to make sure that they and others like them who, again, are so willing to weaponize intelligence to subvert the will of the American people can no longer work in the intelligence community.
So Devin Nunes, Kash Patel, all these guys were in the last time Trump was in. This was produced in the last administration. Why didn't this come out then?
It's a good question, and it's an obvious one. I can't speak for those who were there at that time, but I've asked some of these same questions, and they were facing, I can't speak for all of them, but for Devin, for example, and for Kash, they were up against the deep state in many cases who refused to release these documents. If you remember, Mike Pompeo was President Trump's, I think he was his first CIA director, followed by Gina Haspel. I was told Gina Haspel refused to release these documents. So again, the more that we find in the documentation as whistleblowers come forward, I think the story will continue to be told about what actually happened and why it is that here we are in 2025. And again, this won't surprise many people who've been following this story very closely for years. But the fact that we have documented evidence and proof is the thing that matters, both to shine a light on the truth, that this wasn't something that was in someone's imagination or concocted, but I think even most importantly, that can drive towards accountability.
So Fox News had an exclusive that said Kash Patel found thousands of sensitive documents related to the origins of the Trump-Russia probe buried in multiple burn bags in secret rooms inside the Bureau. What's a burn bag?
This is simply the best moving hack you will find. So after accepting a job offer a couple weeks before the start date,
burn bags in secret rooms inside the Bureau. What's a burn bag?
A burn bag is something that you'll find in many offices throughout the intelligence community, throughout these different workspaces in national security. Basically, if I have a document that's highly classified, I read it, I review it, I'm done with it. My copy can then go in the burn bag to make sure that it's not doesn't end up in the wrong hands, that there's not an unauthorized disclosure of classified information. It's a very difficult to try to get rid of evidence of which maybe there is only one copy of, and then hide it in a secret room in the FBI. That is a tactic, obviously, that has been used by those deep staters, these bad actors within the intelligence community, to try to get rid of evidence. Another tactic that's often used is over-classifying information. This is what happened with the Steele dossier. This was already widely publicized as a discredited document. But what John Brennan did and James Clapper did as the CIA director and the Obama's director of national intelligence, they didn't want anybody to know that they used the Steele dossier as a source for this intelligence assessment that was filled with falsehoods they published in January of 2017, as well as other really, really shoddy intelligence sources that would not be acceptable to be used on any topic because they were not deemed credible. They wanted to hide all of this from members of Congress, perhaps, who were reading this, and the American people, and President Trump then, President-elect Trump at that time. And so they overclassified it in a way that there were less than 10 people who could access it. Jeez. And then they locked up the only hard copy documents. This document did not exist on digits. The document that actually exposed, this was the document that we released. Right. They locked that document up and the 5 copies that existed in a safe. And the first time it had been seen, certainly in public, but even by many a week ago.
Sunday, John Radcliffe said that there's more declassification of intelligence coming out that shows how deep this went. He said it's stunning. Any idea on the timeline of that?
It's going through the declassification process right now. I expect it to be released very soon. I think the document will speak for itself, and once again, it will, I think, confirm what a lot of people have already known to be true, but it'll connect a lot of the dots that have not been revealed in public before.
Are you sensing let's see, Mark Elias stopped posting on X. Brennan has lawyered up. John Kerry has made his account private. Peter Strzok deleted his entire X history. Are you sensing they feel the walls are closing in?
In my view, that's the only way that I can read this situation. Those who are truly innocent would not be taking those kinds of actions. And once again, this is why it's so important to declassify this information, to get the truth out, because it's something that for anyone who is mildly objective is irrefutable and undeniable, and can be used and is currently being reviewed by the Department of Justice to bring about accountability for those involved.
We were talking before we went on the air, and I said, I'm struggling with my job right now because it at times doesn't seem like it's worth it. It makes any difference at all because I don't know what I believe. So I can't sit here and on the air and talk about problems if there's not a solution. It feels insane. It feels insane. I keep doing the same thing over and over again, beating the head against the wall and saying, look here's proof, here's proof, here's proof, and nothing happens. Do you sense that? Do you think the people around you understand what danger the country is in right now because they just don't believe there's justice on any front?
Amen.
Well, first, Glenn, let me just tell you how important your voice is. I think I'm serious. I'm not just patronizing you. It is your voice and voices like yours where you have the ability to reach and impact people from all political stripes, different backgrounds, different walks of life across the country who are not paying as close attention. I'm just going to keep talking here. Who are not paying as close attention. Who are not paying as close attention to these things in the way that you and your team are, and your ability to communicate. The first challenge and opportunity is to be able to communicate to the American people why they should care about this at all.
Right.
What the implications of what we have released and exposed truly are. Not just for President Trump, not just for Republicans or for Democrats, but for the integrity of our democratic republic. And the tactics that are being used by the deep state and have been used to subvert the will of the American people because, President Obama and his cohort were not happy that President Trump got elected. So the first thing is being able to really communicate clearly the implications of this on our republic. The second piece of this, yes, it is the accountability piece, and I understand the frustration.
3 huge reasons why you should definitely avoid using this on your hair. In just 2 weeks, it made my hair grow like...
And I understand the frustration. But our system is set up in the way that it is by our visionary founding fathers. What we have to do is fulfill our duty, focused on the Constitution, and providing this mechanism for accountability to take place, and doing what the American people really have done best since the founding of our country, which is recognizing the power in each of our voices to make sure that we are calling for that necessary action to begin to restore that trust.
I'm sure you can relate. I mean, Dan Bongino posted a cryptic message on X the other day.
I read it.
Yeah, he said, it shocked me. What I found out at my time at the FBI has shocked me down to the core. We cannot run a republic like this, and I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned. I'm not expecting you to answer for him, but have you felt that way when you've gotten being there?
I have seen up close and personal the tactics that are used by those who care more for themselves, their ambition, their job, their influence, their political interests, their selfish, self-serving. That every single one of these law enforcement and intelligence community professionals swear an oath, just like I have, both in uniform in the military and as a member of Congress and as Director of National Intelligence, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. This is why what we are doing matters so much. So yes, I have my own frustrations, trust me, but my resolve is focused and is rooted in my love for our country and my belief in the values and principles that our country was founded upon, and therefore the responsibility that I carry to do something about that which we are revealing, that which I am seeing and experiencing firsthand. It is a heavy responsibility, but it's also an awesome one, and I spend every day doing my best to fulfill it.
We've talked before, and I've said to you, you are in the second most dangerous job, I think, in the nation. President Trump is in the most dangerous job in the nation, and I think, you're working around some, people that do this kind of stuff for a living, and we pray for your safety every night.
Just pay attention, lifters.
Matt, what's up? Sometimes you just like book them right. Goodness gracious. So Tulsa was just on, and then they dropped the Durham report, the Durham annex. You know this scandal better than virtually anyone alive because you were in Congress fighting against it day and night. And
just say it, Benny. Just say it. I peaked during the Russia hoax. Okay?
You did. You called these bastards out to their face.
The Russia hoax, and now it's back in the news. But could we just take a moment and reflect on the fact that, like, John Durham wrote this whole report, came and testified before Congress, and apparently all of the bangers were in an appendix that we had to win an election and then get control of the FBI and CIA in order to read?
Let's get fiscal. Lesson 1, savings strike. New to finances, learn to manage.
And CIA in order to read? Like, in what? If Donald Trump had not won this election, you would never even have seen this stuff. Yep. And we endured years of the media saying I was Vladimir Putin's lawyer, Trump was Vladimir Putin's agent, that there were these tapes and this compromising material, and the whole thing was cooked up by the Clinton campaign, and it didn't work. And then after it didn't work, when they were trying to manipulate the media and convince us all that, like, you know, we would be raising the Russian flag over the White House if Donald Trump won, after it didn't work, Obama himself ordered a hit on the Republic, on American democracy, when on December 9th of 2016, he got everybody together and he said, look, go back, redo these assessments, and he gave the to create this predicate, and that Comey would then be the inside man still in the Trump administration to pull the levers of government to try to destabilize this presidency. And somehow, through all of this, Donald Trump got his tax cuts, preserved peace in the world, backed down Kim in North Korea, and gave us some of the greatest prosperity any of us have known in our lives up to the COVID deal. And so it's quite a moment. But it also shows, like, how dogged you have to be to get this stuff. Is no one outraged over the fact that John Durham gave hours of public testimony and we're just getting this stuff now?
Yeah, but, like, can you please elucidate for us? I'm sure you haven't had the opportunity to read these thousands of documents that just broke seconds ago. But do you have any top-line information that you've learned?
Other members and staff have seen this stuff, before today. And the core of it is that the beginning of the Russia hoax was not George Papadopoulos in some London bar. It wasn't some belief that there were secret Trump-Putin channels of communications through Eric Prince in the Seychelles. That the whole thing was, in fact, cooked up and sold to donors such as Soros and the Open Society Foundation as a political mechanism, just like if you and I were involved in a campaign, we would say, okay, well, we're really going to attack this candidate based on their views on energy, right? And we would develop memos about that, and we would go talk to reporters about what we thought about that candidate's views on energy, right? But here, they went to the Russia thing, I guess because that was easier than campaigning in the Great Lakes Stakes and going to Wisconsin. I mean, it's so crazy to think about. But they did that here, and then they injected it into the intelligence community with the help of some of these pseudo political operatives and high-ranking officials at DOJ, CIA, and FBI. So that's what you're going to see, the correspondence that ran on the rails of communication, the pitch to financiers. Because remember, the original guy who walked this into the FBI was John McCain. Now, this was a deal that some Rubio donor had cooked up, and then McCain walks it in, and it's kind of dismissed. And then the DNC picks it up because they say, whoa, this is something we can really pour the gas on and get to be a central focus of the campaign. Turns out people just wanted closed borders and an economy that worked.
Yeah. So tell me, I just went to community college, Matt, so help me through this. We've heard for a decade now that President Trump paid the Russians to help him win and rig the election in 2016. Am I just understanding this as a simpleton? It was the exact opposite, that Hillary Clinton was using Russian disinformation. These are Russian spies. Christopher Steele's sanctioned by working for and being paid by a sanctioned Russian oligarch. All of this disinformation about President Trump came literally from Russia. And that was Hillary Clinton's campaign that was merchandising it, and the FBI that was then laundering it to the CIA and to the press and the media. So it was actually them working with the Russians in order to attack Trump.
That's right. That's exactly right. The media and the FBI were white labeling Russian dirt that was being assembled by foreign spies who hated Trump, paid for by the DNC. That is what happened. And they said, like, how dare we question the integrity or the viewpoint of how Robert Mueller is looking at this investigation? We had Republicans saying that. We had Trey Gowdy and the like saying, just let Mueller do his job and this will all be great. Where was Mueller investigating the Russians that were assembling the Steele dossier? That's my question. I mean, if Mueller was supposed to investigate the Russian interference in the election, what you just learned from this annex is that it was the Democrats. And it was the elements of our own government at President Obama's direction that were white labeling Russian dirt in order to try to sway voters. And then after voters would not be swayed, to literally try to sway a presidency. They prosecuted Trump for taking home some documents. Barack Obama tried to take home the whole presidency. Yeah. I think there has to be accountability for this. Here's the real strategy question going forward, though, Benny. This is all documents, right? And evidence takes two forms, documents and witnesses. How good are the witnesses? Can they withstand cross-examination? Would you put them before the House Judiciary Committee and Jamie Raskin? Would you put them on the stand if you wouldn't be willing to subject them to rigorous review? How do they come across? How do they look? These are all things that I think Jamie Comer knows. They're things that the Justice Department and the DNI probably know. We'll all find out how good those witnesses are, I think, in the coming weeks and months.
So now if you have these documents, and you mentioned the we're just reading them live on air here. You have a spectacular live show as well on One American News. But we're reading them live on air. Am I to understand that this is implicating the Soros Foundation in assistance in paying for all this? Because it was very expensive to do this operation. It cost millions of dollars in order to run this operation through Fusion GPS, Christopher Steele, and so on. I mean, is there going to be legal culpability potentially for George Soros here?
The challenge with that is so much of this money is like disaggregated, fungible. And so what happens in politics is that when people feel like they've got a really compelling pitch to donors, that there's a great ad that will really cut through if we only had another $1 million to put it on TV, or there's this great candidate, and if we just gave them the right funding, they would secure this important position of power. And in this case, what appears to have happened is that the Debbie Wasserman Schultz DNC apparatus was trying to seduce the Soros operation into really funding a lot of the information operation around this. And whether or not you could tie those specific funds then into those ops, I don't see that in the docs yet. Still a lot to review. But I think the solicitation of the Soros Foundation to do this shows, like, that's not how you run a counter intel op. That's not how you run a criminal investigation. That's how you run a political smear campaign. And showcasing that tradecraft, I think, further indicts the Brennan viewpoint that all of this needed to be included in the official work product of our government.
We have used this very briefcase once in the history of LGND. This right behind me is LGND 77s, which means
that all of this needed to be included in the official work product of our government.
Well, it should be enough for a subpoena, right? Like that, having the name dropped in there and having the...
John Brennan never had to testify in public about this stuff. I asked him questions behind closed doors, but I begged our leadership, Brennan, Clapper, Comey, no more of these behind closed doors depots. Let's drag these guys in front of the country and ask them the questions that are on the minds of regular folks. And all I could get was the behind closed door deposition. That may turn out to be one of the predicate criminal acts in the conspiracy, Brennan's perjury to my questions about his involvement in the Steele dossier. Wow. But I think it's a fair question for Republicans to ask. We've got this majority. Why don't we take it out for a spin?
So wait a second. You're telling me that Republican leadership kneecapped you back when this was all rolling, when I assume would it be Paul Ryan in charge of the House?
No. I mean, these were decisions that were made, during the current ruling regime of the Republican structure. And here's what I was told when I said, look, Benny, the investigation was about the 51 intelligence officials that signed the letter that said that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. And so we interviewed a lot of those people in private, and they said some very interesting things, and we released the transcripts. But that's nothing like having to have people answer live questions, Republicans and Democrats from both sides. And what I was told is that we would look potentially mean and retaliatory.
This is smash mouth.
What I was told.
Man, we're fighting communists, dude. Like, this is.
How are we supposed to win a war against these people when they're using the imprimatur of their security clearance and their government role to go and tell lies about Hunter Biden's laptop and Donald Trump? And when we ask them tough questions, we look like the mean guys, and so we're not going to do it. I was very opposed to that decision that was made. I voiced that viewpoint, and so I did the best I could. I showed up to all the behind closed doors depots. I did so when most of the members didn't, and I did what I could to ask the questions that would be on the minds of your viewers.
Would you mind elucidating for us where you think there was a perjury trap for Brennan, what you've gotten? And forgive us, sometimes, you release these transcripts. You release transcripts that are like 7,000 pages long. It's like so hard to get through.
Yeah, so here's the gist of it. I was like, look, man, how come you got all these people together to say that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation? What was your basis to say it was Russian disinformation? He said, my entire career of making decisions about Russia and their intelligence operations. I was like, oh, well, good. I've got one I'd like to ask you about, the Steele dossier, since you're such an expert in all things Russia. And his lawyers went nuts and said, well, we're not here to talk about Steele. We're here to talk about Hunter Biden. And I said, well, tough. You opened the door for it. And so since they opened the door, I proceeded on a line of questioning wherein Brennan said, I had nothing to do with any analysis of the Steele dossier. That was all the FBI. CIA had no role in this. No, we made no decision about its inclusion. And now you got, like, if you throw a rock at at Langley, so it hits somebody who says that they thought the Steele dossier was trash, should not be included. And it was Brennan himself who overruled good people at the CIA who said this stuff was nonsense. So that is where he committed a predicate criminal act in furtherance of a broader conspiracy. And the tell from the Department of Justice that they're doing this the right way is they're not just pursuing these as individual criminal acts, because if you do that, you have to bring that case. System is like a leftist Ouija board. So if you have a conspiracy and any of these cats took a text message in Palm Beach, did a phone call when they were on a ski vacation in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, if they were sending an email from Virginia, then we're going to have the opportunity to venue a prosecution of the whole conspiracy where you may find any one predicate criminal act.
Such a critical question. We asked General Flynn this, and he was like, I'm really worried about getting out of, you have to get out of D.C. You have to get out of the vectors of their control. And you have to get out of those jury pools. Okay, that's perfect. So, okay, when we're looking at this, how would you charge it, Matt? I mean, given the fact that they've lied to your face, one, I want to use this as a platform to bang my fist. Must Republicans bring these individuals forward to Congress to testify now? Like, is now the moment? Well, must it happen, or is that
look? We haven't seen these witnesses, Benny. We haven't seen them, and so there are certain people who are telling the truth, but just don't make good witnesses. That is the nature of performance art. And so only, the people behind the curtain right now know how good the witnesses are, and we're going to see the decision they make about how to utilize that evidence.
Okay. So how would you charge it? Would you charge it as a criminal conspiracy against rights? That's what Mike Davis told us.
Yeah, I think that would be an element. I mean, look at what they charged everybody in January 6th over.
Seditious conspiracy.
Right? I mean,
seditious conspiracy. Yeah.
I think that what Obama did on December 9th 2016 looks a lot more like seditious conspiracy to me than anything I saw on January 6, 2021.
Every parent needs to know about this.
With Peppa Pig meals on Home Chef's family menu.
Looks a lot more like seditious conspiracy to me than anything I saw on January 6, 2021.
Great line. Okay, really quickly here, because you're one of the only people that would ever answer this question. None of these documents, I mean, including this document right here, this one's wild. This is Hillary Clinton approved the idea. This is straight from the Durham Annex. Perhaps you've seen it, Matt, because you had a clearance, but I haven't. Okay, Hillary, my team is highlighting this as we're going live. Hillary Clinton approved the idea of Trump and Russia hackers hampering the U.S. elections and also distracting from her email attempts, also hacking the DNC. So the DNC hack, there's been zero evidence that the DNC hack came from the outside. An enormous amount of evidence that the DNC hack came from the inside. All of the emails, the Podesta emails, the satanic spirit cooking dinner stuff, Maria Abramovich, all this Hillary stuff, all this sick stuff, all of it came from the inside. And we haven't been able to get a straight answer on this, but all of these documents seem to point to that was part of the conspiracy, that the Russians hacked the DNC too. Your thoughts on this, Matt?
Yeah, and those can be predicate criminal acts, right? If they are lying to donors, like, remember when they got Santos on, all these wire fraud things about the use of money and what promises were made to donors. So you could maybe access some of those wire fraud statutes based on how the money moved to fund some of this stuff. But yeah, I mean, what that is showing you is they had to run the political op by the candidate, right? And so Hillary Clinton's participation in the decision to pursue this narrative only mires in scandal all the people inside the government who are willing to go along with it.
All right, Matt, I know we're up against a hard out. Just one final question here. What do you expect? Can you give us a honest man's opinion, having seen the inside of this machine and knowing so very closely the Trump team and the president himself? What's going to happen? Like, prepare our audience, right? Like, what's going to happen?
Right. So if you're Clapper or Brennan or Comey or Obama, every time the phone rings, every time there's a knock at the door, every time you hear the leaves rustle on your stoop, you're wondering whether or not it's somebody serving you a subpoena or giving you notice of service, that you're going to have to provide documents and potentially testimony to a grand jury. Decisions will have to be made by some really smart prosecutors like Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche about who to flip, who to give immunity to, that will be the narrator of this great conspiracy. Whenever you have a major conspiracy trial, you have to have a great narrator. And who's that going to be? Who maybe wants the opportunity to participate in the proceedings in that way? That's the next thing coming. The subpoenas, and then who flips.
And one more time, I'm not a betting man, but please handicap for us, Matt. Do you expect people will go to prison for this?
Well, look, I think that it's always difficult to get in front of the prosecutors who have to make some of these charging decisions, but a lot of that's going to come down to venue. I don't know whether or not some of these things happened outside of D.C. in jurisdictions where you can get a fair shake. We already had Andrew McCabe strung up, ready to go on lying to Congress, and there wasn't a grand jury that would even indict him in Washington, D.C. because of the nature of that deeply corrupt place. So I think that the venue question is what that will turn on.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'll take mugshots for right now. I'll start with the low-hanging fruit, man. I'll take the mugshots.
Just nice hey, by the way, just nice to get the Durham Annex here in 2025. Thank goodness. I wonder what annexes we're going to be getting in 2035, Benny. Maybe that's when we'll get the Benny Johnson Tim Pool Annex. We'll wait till 2035 and learn.
That's right. I've been asking, what a filthy, dirty op, man. What a filthy, dirty op. I'm telling you, that thing stinks to high heavens. And the fact that they were spread. You're the victim of a crime. Okay, yeah, all right. I think
we're going to learn in 2035 that Benny Johnson actually is Vladimir Putin. You just didn't know it the whole time.
And we're going to learn today that Matt Gaetz is Neo from the Matrix, according to his cover image here on X. That is amazing. I think it's just Neo, dude. It's just Neo.
It's a cock prison, magical place. I gotta run.
See you, Matt. Thank you, man. Everyone follow Matt Gates, obviously.
But DC is corrupted, man. It is.
Or salt, or age, even heat. But those explanations.
The big news right now is that Hillary Clinton is in big trouble. We're finding document after document that proves that not only was she a part of the Russia hoax, that she was the primary instigator. She signed off. It links Obama. So much coming out thanks to the FBI and Tulsi Gabbard. To help me go through this and other big stories, I have Brandon Tatum. Brandon, thank you so much for joining me again.
Well, thanks for having me back.
So lots going on. Let me give my audience some background. So Officer Brandon Tatum is a former police officer turned YouTube creator with 3.5 million subscribers. On his channel, he covers politics.
DC is very corrupted. Why can't I skip to like
Annex. That shows that they were not only hiding this from you when they launched this hoax against Trump, but they hid it from you for the last 5 years. Why didn't we know about this when John Durham turned in his official report? Why has this been kept a secret from the American people for so long? Let's dive into it here, ladies and gentlemen. Carolyn Levitt will be out. We're not exactly sure when. Of course, you won't miss a second of world will be locked and loaded and will cut me right off as soon as Carolyn Levitt takes the dais. Here she is. There she is. Let's rock and roll.
Everyone. We have a get to it. First, on behalf of the President and the White House, we express our deepest condolences to the family of New York police officer Islam, who made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of his fellow New Yorkers. As the funeral services are held in New York City today, everyone at the White House is keeping the officer's family, friends, and fellow NYPD law enforcement officers in our thoughts and prayers. The President has always, and will always, proudly stand with our men and women in blue. May God bless Officer Islam and the other individuals who were tragically killed in this senseless act of violence. In other news, President Trump's working visit to Scotland was a huge success. In less than 48 hours, President Trump brokered the biggest, most impactful trade deal in history and prevented a war in Asia for the second time since he took office. We have never had a president who wields the full power of the United States to negotiate good deals for our country and its people like President Trump. This is what maximum leverage looks like. On the peace front, President Trump helped deliver an immediate and unconditional ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia.
It takes 90 seconds for this NASA-engineered AC cool down your room. It's smaller than a toaster, cools.
Trump helped deliver an immediate and unconditional ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia. Faced more than 300,000 people until President Trump stepped in to put an end to it. The president spoke directly on the phone with the acting Prime Minister of Thailand and the Prime Minister of Cambodia to inform both leaders that unless they brought their conflict to an end, there would be no trade discussions or agreements with the United States. Almost immediately afterward, a peace was brokered that will save thousands of lives and allowed for trade negotiations with these countries to resume, and they have. The president has now ended conflicts between Thailand and Cambodia, Israel and Iran, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, India and Pakistan, Serbia and Kosovo, and Egypt and Ethiopia. This means President Trump has brokered, on average, about one peace deal or ceasefire per month during his 6 months in office. It's well past time that President Trump was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. I know the topic of Israel is on everyone's mind. I have an update from Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who I got off the phone with this morning. Special Envoy Witkoff and Ambassador Huckabee had a very productive meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu and other officials today in Israel on the topic of delivering much-needed food and aid to Gaza. President Trump is a humanitarian with a big heart, and that's why he sent Special Envoy Witkoff to the region in an effort to save lives and end this crisis. Tomorrow, Special Envoy Witkoff and Ambassador Huckabee will be traveling into Gaza to inspect the current distribution sites and secure a plan to deliver more food and meet with local Gazans to hear firsthand about this dire situation on the ground. The Special Envoy and the Ambassador will brief the President immediately after their visit to approve a final plan for food and aid distribution into the region, and we will provide more details for all of you once that plan is approved and agreed on by the President of the United States. On the trade front, the President secured a historic trade agreement with the European Union that puts America first and fundamentally strengthens the economic relationship between the two largest economies in the world. This deal delivers on two of President Trump's core promises on trade, supercharging America's manufacturing capacity and opening up foreign market access to American businesses. The deal guarantees that American businesses will have unprecedented levels of access to the European Union markets to export our American-made goods. Also, as part of this agreement, the EU will purchase $750 billion in U.S. energy to strengthen our energy dominance, reduce European reliance on adversarial sources, and narrow our trade deficit with the EU. The EU will also make new investments of $60 billion in the United States, in addition to the more than $100 billion the EU companies already invest in the U.S. every year. All of these massive purchases and investments will happen by the end of 2028. What we are watching history of the world and turn it and simultaneously proving the so-called economic experts wrong at every turn. Media pundits said a trade deal with impossible, but President Trump made it happen. The so-called economic experts repeatedly said that the American economy would be in a recession this summer. Well, summer is here. It's almost over. And that recession does not exist. Yesterday, in fact, real GDP growth in the second quarter increased at a 3.0% annual rate, significantly above expectations. President Trump's America First policies are driving economic growth, as he always said they would. And this growth is being driven by the private sector, not the government. Federal government spending fell for a second straight quarter, while real business fixed investment rose by nearly 2%. Following its first quarter surge. President Trump is right-sizing government spending, reversing the damage done by the Biden administration, and allowing the private sector to flourish. The same so-called experts claimed that President Trump's tariffs would spike inflation and hurt American consumers. But consumer spending growth just accelerated and inflation remains right on track. For the past 5 straight months, core inflation has come in below market expectation and remains in line with the Fed's 2% inflation target. Meanwhile, customs and tariff revenues have already totaled more than $150 billion since President Trump took office, leading to the first June budget surplus in nearly a decade. Those new reciprocal tariff rates take effect. President Trump is restoring America's economic sovereignty by reducing our reliance on foreign countries, boosting investment in the U.S. to the tune of trillions of dollars, and creating hundreds of thousands of high-paying jobs for the American people. With America finally put first on trade and the largest middle-class tax cuts in history and other pro-growth provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill beginning to take effect, the American economy will boom like never before over the course of the next 3.5 years, thanks to the president's vision. Finally, as you all know, the president signed an executive order earlier this year to solve the problem of exorbitant pharmaceutical pricing. According to recent data, the prices that Americans have been paying for brand name drugs are more than 3 times the price other similarly developed nations pay. The president is determined to solve this problem and took further action today. He has signed 17 letters to pharmaceutical companies' CEOs, and I would like to read you one of these letters to the CEO of Eli Lilly. All of these letters will be provided to you following this briefing. This is to the CEO of Eli Lilly from the President of the United States. On May 12, 2025, I signed an executive order delivering most favored nation prescription drug pricing to American patients to stop global freeloading and guarantee that Americans pay the same prices enjoyed by other developed nations. Right now, brand name drugs in the United States are up to 3 times higher on average than anywhere else for the identical medicines. This unacceptable burden on hardworking American families ends with my administration. Most proposals the Trump administration has received to resolve this critical issue promised more of the same, shifting blame and requesting policy changes that would result in billions of dollars in handouts to industry. Moving forward, the only thing I will accept from drug manufacturers is a commitment that provides American families immediate relief from the vastly inflated drug prices and an end to the free ride of American innovation by European and other developed nations. Accordingly, I'm calling on Eli Lilly and Company and every manufacturer doing business in our great country to take the following actions within the next 60 days. Extend the most favored nation pricing to Medicaid, guarantee most favored nation pricing for newly launched drugs, return increased revenues abroad to American patients and taxpayers, provide for direct purchasing at most favored nation pricing. The President's team, including Secretary Kennedy and Administrator Oz, stand ready to implement these terms. The President expects to further engage with them immediately in good faith to deliver relief for American families. Make no mistake, a collaborative effort towards achieving global pricing parity would be the most effective path for companies, the government, and American patients. But if you refuse to step up, we will deploy every tool in our arsenal to protect American families from continued abusive drug pricing practices. Americans are nations have been freeloading on U.S. innovation for far too long, and it is time they pay their fair share. I look forward to your binding commitments to each of these goals by September 29th, 2025, and my team stands ready to assist with implementation questions. Thank you for your immediate attention to this vital national priority. Signed, President Donald J. Trump. Again, to the CEO of Eli Lilly. This letter, in its form, has been designed for each of the 17 major drug and pharmaceutical companies in the United States, and we're happy to provide you the full list. And I believe you will see all 17 letters popping on Truth Social very shortly, so you can look out for those, and I'm happy to take any further questions. Before we get to questions, I do have one other announcement from the White House and from the President. We are proud to announce that the construction of the new White House ballroom will begin. For 150 years, presidents, administrations, and White House staff have longed for a large event space on the White House complex that can hold substantially more guests than currently allowed. President Trump has expressed his commitment to solving this problem on behalf of future administrations and the American people. The White House is one of the most beautiful and historic buildings in the world, yet the White House is currently unable to host major functions, honoring world leaders in other countries without having to install a large and unsightly tent approximately 100 yards away from the main building's entrance. The White House State Ballroom will be a much-needed and exquisite addition of approximately 90 carefully crafted space with a seated capacity of 650 people, which is a significant increase from the 200-person seated capacity in the East Room of the White House. In recent weeks, President Trump has held several meetings with members of the White House staff, the National Park Service, the White House Military Office, and the United States Secret Service to discuss design features and planning. President Trump has chosen McCreary Architects as the lead architect, which is well known for their classical architectural design and based right here in our nation's capital. The construction team will be headed by Clark Construction, and the engineering team will be led by AECOM. The project will begin in September 2025, and it is expected to be completed long before the end of President Trump's term. President Trump and other donors have generously committed to donating the funds necessary to build this approximately $200 million structure. The United States Secret Service will provide the necessary security enhancements and modifications. The White House ballroom will be substantially separated from the main building of the White House, but at the same time, its theme and architectural heritage will be almost identical. The site of the new ballroom will be where the small, heavily changed and reconstructed East Wing currently sits. The East Wing was constructed in 1902 and has been renovated and changed many times, with a second story added in 1942. White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles has provided the following statement. President Trump is a builder at heart and has an extraordinary eye for detail. The President and the Trump White House are fully committed to working with the appropriate organizations to preserve the special history of the White House while building a beautiful generations of Americans to come. In the White House, we will continue to provide the American public and all of you in the press with updates on this project at whitehouse.gov/visit. And if you go there shortly, you will be able to see renderings and visuals of what this ballroom will look like, both the exterior and the interior. I have provided some photos for all of you in the room today. This is the interior of the ballroom space.
Stop scrolling. You won't believe this moving hack. It's almost too good to be true. Imagine getting your long distance.
Provided some photos for all of you in the room today. This is the interior of the ballroom space. It's quite beautiful. And then this is the exterior of the ballroom space. As you can see, it will come off of the executive mansion as it sits today, and the East Wing will be modernized and renovated. We're happy to answer any further questions on that, Jennifer. Since you're so eager, I will go to you, but first, as always, I want to start with our new media chief, Ben Weingarten. Why don't you go ahead, Ben?
Thank you. In light of the release, the declassification of the annex to the Durham report today, beyond any potential prosecutions, the outcomes of which will likely be uncertain, what does the president believe justice for Russiagate ought to entail? Might it include restitution for those whose lives were upended as a consequence of Russiagate, and perhaps a major reorganization of the national security apparatus?
Well, I think a major organization of the national security apparatus, at least here at the White House within the National Security Council, has indeed taken place, and the president entrusts his current CIA director, John Ratcliffe, and our ODNI director, Tulsi Gabbard, to make the necessary changes to ensure classified intelligence, especially that could implement or hurt the national security of our country, does not make its way into the hands of irresponsible actors who want to politicize that intelligence for their own end. Since you brought up the declassification report that was put out by Senator Grassley today, I'm glad you brought it up, because this should be a story every outlet in this room should be covering. This is further evidence that Hillary Clinton approved the Russia hoax against President Trump. Her campaign financed it. Again, she approved it. And the FBI and the CIA were both weaponized to, as our director of CIA has said, accelerate this hoax against then candidate and former President Trump. To answer the heart of your question, the president wants to see justice served, and he trusts the Attorney General and the Department of Justice to implement that justice and hold these people accountable.
One more question briefly, if I may, on a totally different topic. There's been legislation reintroduced in the House and Senate on designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. The Muslim Brotherhood is considered by many to be the fountainhead of Sunni Islamic supremacism, from which Hamas and other groups have spawned, with a nexus to domestic organizations as well. Does the president support designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization?
Frankly, I'm not sure, because I haven't talked to him, and I would never designations. It sounds like something this administration would support, but we can get a firm answer for you. How's that?
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Jennifer, go ahead.
Eager beavers. How much of the East Wing will be torn down? The entire East Wing or just parts of it?
So the East Wing is going to be modernized. The necessary construction will take place. And for those who are housed in the East Wing, including the Office of the First Lady, the White House Military Office, the White House Visitors Offices, those offices will be temporarily relocated while the East Wing is being modernized.
And then on Israel-Gaza, there are some reports that negotiations with Hamas might not be continuing. Did you get any updates from Steve Witkoff on that?
I did. Special Envoy Witkoff is actively talking with our counterparts in Israel about that, and he wants to give some grace to the president so he can fully brief the president on what he's learning on the ground in both Israel and Gaza. But the president put out a very strong statement on Truth Social this morning, which I'm sure you saw, and he said the quickest way to end this entire conflict, the humanitarian crisis that we've seen, and the crisis in Israel that, of course, started on October 7th when Hamas brutally kidnapped and raped innocent Israelis, that terrible terrorist attack, is for Hamas to surrender, to release all of the hostages, and to end this conflict. And that's what the president wants to see. He's made that very clear. But the special envoy will be in Gaza tomorrow, as I shared with you previously. Josh.
Can you give us a little more clarity on the tariff timing? You said that the reciprocals will take effect tomorrow.
Yes.
Does that include the new auto rates, for instance, on Japan, Korea, the EU? Is this all coming effective tomorrow?
So some of the countries you just mentioned, Japan, South Korea, they have bespoke trade deals that the president cut, which, just to backtrack for a second, Josh, we promised that the president would negotiate with countries all around the world to cut tailor-made trade deals depending on those countries' challenges, how badly they've ripped off the United States of America and our manufacturing industry and our workforce in the past. And he has done that. Of our 18 major trading partners, 2/3 of those trading partners have a deal. We've sent out 17 letters to countries around the world. And the rest of those countries that either do not have a deal or have a letter, they will be hearing from this administration by the midnight deadline tonight. So yes, tomorrow, August 1st, the reciprocal rates will be going into effect. If more deals are cut between now and midnight, I will never count out the president. You've seen him do it before. He cut 3 deals in one day very recently. So we'll see what happens. I do know foreign leaders are ringing his phone, realizing this deadline is a real thing for them tomorrow, and they're bringing offers to the table.
We were reporting that the president wants to meet David Solomon of Goldman Sachs today. Can you say what they'll discuss, anything in that meeting?
I won't discuss the president's private meetings from this podium, and it hasn't taken place yet unless he gives me liberty to do so.
Finally, have you talked with the president about his position on the stock trading ban bill before Congress? He obviously had pretty loaded comments about Senator Hawley. There's some reporting that they've since spoken. What is his position on the current status of that bill?
The president has spoken to Senator Hawley, who called him, and the president took that call. As the president said in the Roosevelt Room yesterday, conceptually, he of course supports the idea of ensuring that members of Congress and United States senators. And the reason that this idea to put a ban on stock trading for members of Congress is even a thing is because of Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she is rightfully criticized because she makes, I think, $174,000 a year, yet she has a net worth of approximately $413 million. In 2024, Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio, this was a fascinating statistic to me, grew 70% in 1 year in 2024, and her portfolio outperformed every single large hedge fund in that same year, and even more than doubled the returns of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. So I think the president stands with the American people on this. He doesn't want to see people like Nancy Pelosi enriching themselves off of public service and ripping off their constituents in the process. As for the mechanics of the legislation and how it will move forward, the White House continues to be in discussions with our friends on Capitol Hill. Emily, in a new seat today.
Thanks, Caroline. I wanted to ask about this report that the president wants to host a G20 meeting at Trump Darrell. How is he going to do that, considering all the preparations that have been going on in South Africa? And also, would that be seen as his businesses possibly profiting from hosting this kind of meeting?
I would reject that premise entirely. We have announcements and details forthcoming on the G20, but my understanding is no firm announcement is ready to be made at this time. I did see the report, but we're not in a place to confirm it just yet.
Michelle, just on the tariffs, what are the logistics for imposing those? Does the president have to sign an executive order tonight? What's the timing of that?
Yes, and he will be signing an executive order at some point this afternoon or later this evening. And as always, we'll keep you posted when that happens, and it will be released from our office.
And there's some of these countries that have Have they all had contact with U.S. officials, or are there some countries that are going to get letters that have had no opportunity to negotiate with the United States?
Well, there's a lot of countries that I know have reached out. I believe it's upwards of 200 countries around the world have reached out to the trade and tariff team. Of course, as I said previously, and the president said, we're going to prioritize our key trading partners, which we have done. Like I said, of the 18, 2/3 of those we have cut these tailor-made deals with. But I do know that the trade team has been working around the clock to try to be in correspondence with as many countries as possible. But if they haven't heard from us yet, they will in the form of a letter or an executive order by midnight tonight.
I serve my country, and now I carry legally everywhere I go. Here's how. National Concealed Carry.
If they haven't heard from us yet, they will in the form of a letter or an executive order by midnight tonight. We'll go to the back. Sure, go ahead. In the back left.
Thank you.
Amanda, yes.
Thank you very much. I have a question ask about the U.S.
Amanda, you can go ahead.
U.S. and South Korea tariff negotiations. At the tariff negotiation between South Korea and the United States concluded yesterday. President Trump stated on his SNS, Truth speak details of the investment in the United States at the South Korea United States Summit in 2 weeks. A final agreement, or is further negotiation necessary?
Well, yes, as you know, the president met with representatives of the Republic of South Korea here at the White House yesterday, and they did, in fact, reach a deal. And South Korea will pay a 15% tariff rate, including 15% on autos, while providing historic market access to American goods like autos and rice. Korea will purchase $100 billion in American energy by 2028, and the centerpiece of this deal is that South Korea has agreed to invest $350 billion at the president's direction to revitalize American industry. 90% of those profits will go to the United States government to help pay down our debt and for other matters at the president's choosing. So it was a very successful meeting yesterday.
Do you have any set up the further U.S. South Korea summit day?
I'll get you something on that. I don't have it at my fingertips. Okay, Amanda.
Thank you, Caroline. There are a number of congressional Republicans who have raised the alarm about the fact that roughly 80% of pharmaceuticals are either manufactured or their precursors are manufactured in either China or India. There are some pieces of legislation, some recommendations, which include either onshoring, nearshoring, or friendshoring, those components of that. Do you know if the president intends to throw the weight of the executive behind that?
I don't have any updates for you at this time. I do have an update on our EU trade deal. I stand corrected. It's not $60 billion in investments. It's $600 billion in investments. I want to make that very clear. And I personally watched the president behind closed doors with the European president in Scotland negotiating this deal. And he got the most juice out of that squeeze that he could. And he was constantly looking out for America's interests. So I just wanted to clarify that one point. Deanna.
Thanks, Caroline. For the countries that don't have a deal yet, should we be looking at the April 2nd chart at all? Or is he negotiating and talking about having a set tariff rate, 10%, 20%?
Those discussions are taking place with the trade team today, and again, we'll provide further guidance with that executive order once it is signed, and the answer to that question will be in that executive order.
Is he looking to provide any more extensions today after his phone call with Mexico? Is there any other conversations like that?
I do know that other foreign leaders around the world have reached out, and if the president decides to share the conclusions of those calls with all of you, he will do so himself. But I do want to reiterate what the president said about Mexico. Mexico is still paying tariffs. They're paying a 25% tariff on fentanyl, 25% tariff on cars, a 50% tariff on steel, aluminum, and copper. And additionally, Mexico has agreed to immediately terminate its non-tariff trade barriers, of which there are many. And as the president said, we will continue to talk to Mexico over the next 90 days with the goal of signing a larger trade deal. The key to this, again, is Mexico has agreed to terminate those non-tariff barriers and to continue to work with us in good faith. Mexico is a very unique situation. Of all the other countries seen an increase in cooperation between Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum and our administration on clamping down on drug trafficking and human trafficking at the southern border. We appreciate those efforts and will continue to work in good faith and to continue to have these trade discussions as well. Joey.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. Just clarifying on the previous question, President Trump has indicated he's been looking at either 15% or 20% baseline universal tariff. Has he landed on one of those yet?
I won't get ahead of the president on that baseline announcement.
And then secondly, what did Treasury Secretary Bassett mean yesterday when he called the new Trump accounts for newborns a, quote, backdoor to privatizing Social Security? Does the administration view this new Trump accounts as a way to, in the long term, perhaps privatize Social Security?
What the Secretary of Treasury was saying and what this administration believes is that these Trump newborn accounts, which is an incredibly creative and great provision that was in the One Big Beautiful Bill for newborn babies and families and future generations of Americans, will help supplement, not substitute, Social Security. The Trump administration is wholeheartedly committed to protecting Social Security. The president did it in his first term. He's doing it again in this term. But these newborn accounts are another revenue stream for young people to watch their money grow throughout their lives and to one day be able to access those funds so they can hopefully build a home and live the
Is the president at all considering extending the August 12th China deadline at all? Is that in consideration?
So look, on China, you heard from the president on Air Force One when we were returning from Scotland. You've heard from the Treasury Secretary as well, Ambassador Jameson Greer. They just spent 2 days in Geneva for their third round of talks with China. And the current policy, the current trade program that we have going with China right now as it stands will decrease our deficit by $5 billion this year. So we are moving in the right direction when it comes to China. And Secretary Bessent and Ambassador Greer continue to be in direct communication with our Chinese counterparts.
Is it an extension on the table potentially from that August 12th deadline as it stands?
I don't think so, but I'll let the Secretary of Treasury speak on that because he's leading these negotiations. Reagan, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. There's growing frustration that more of Trump's nominees haven't been confirmed. Why does the president think Senate Republicans are so behind, and has he had any further conversations with Leader Thune about it?
The president has had many conversations with his friends in the United States Senate about advancing his nominees, his judicial nominees through this process. It is critical that we get these good attorneys in these positions so that we can end the weaponization of justice, so we can have true law and order in our country. It's unfortunate the Democrats are playing political games, but the president has made it clear to Senate Republicans they need to do everything in their power to advance the president's nominees as well. Kelly, go ahead.
Caroline, thank you. 2 questions real quickly.
Sure.
Nigeria. Congressman Chris Smith, Republican from New Jersey, is calling upon the President of the United States to do something in terms of imposing perhaps sanctions on Nigeria, the northern part of Nigeria, by radical Islamic groups. Has he contacted the President yet? And do you know if there's any action that the President will take?
I'm not tracking a call between the president and the head of Nigeria. I know the president wholeheartedly condemns the persecution of Christians or, frankly, of people of any faith all over the world, but I don't have any updates for you in terms of sanctions in this part of the world.
My dad looked at a photo of me and asked, "Who's that boy?" That's when I realized I wasn't losing my dad all the time.
In this part of the world.
The second question, Caroline, deals with immigration here in America. As you know, a lot of deportation has been going on. ICE has been.
Come on, please.
Slobs and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account?
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't.
Try not to laugh. Try. It's impossible. It's impossible not to laugh. Try.
And disgusting animals. Your Twitter account?
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't.
It's impossible. By the way, this was in an arena where the Cleveland Cavaliers played. They had just won the NBA National Championship at the time. And I assure you, I know because I was there in the front row, that the national championship Cleveland Cavaliers didn't get louder roars than Donald Trump in this moment. I can assure you of that. This was a game-changing moment. Donald Trump made good on that promise. Rosie O'Donnell has deported and says she's never coming back. She has herpes of the mouth. She's apparently a belligerent alcoholic. She blames Donald Trump for everything. She fled America in order to get away from Donald Trump. She just constantly talks about him. So it's a weird pathology, and, you know, we'll pray for her and things like that. All right, so here we go. This is Donald Trump's unfulfilled promise from the same election, arguably more famous than the first promise because it has wider-ranging implications. So Trump just made good on the first promise. Let's go to the second promise.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
Well, hold on. I didn't ask you to come up here. You voluntarily came to the front of the line.
What's up, guys? Benny. Let me know if you agree with this statement. We'd have a better society if we had more South Parks and less Stephen Colbert's. The reason why is because South Park, even though they mock a lot of people that we may know personally and movements that we are a part of, at the very after everyone, no matter how powerful, that makes them beloved by the audience for over 20 years of the show's ongoing in American history and now a $1 billion franchise. South Park lands $1.5 billion streaming deal with Paramount in the exact same week that they fire Stephen Colbert for losing $40 million. Also in the same week that NPR and PBS are defunded, and most of the corporate media is sued into oblivion. We are culturally ascendant, and woke is dead. And what do I mean by pushing back against powerful people? Well, they obviously make fun of Donald Trump a lot. Conservatives have a sense of humor. They can handle it. There doesn't have to be uniform.
This black gunk is why your neuropathy won't go away. Okay, this might look gross, but trust me, you need to see this. These
ideology forever, and you mustn't mock dear leader. That's not how it works, actually. It's the point of free speech is that you are allowed to mock and make fun of, especially the powerful. In fact, if you can't make fun of something, that is a protected class and antithetical to free speech, and they use this with probably the most tyrannical and all-powerful government on earth, China. We good now, China? South Park issues mock apology to the nation of China after China banned South Park. You see the opposite of, like, South Park made fun of Donald Trump, and they've made fun of Donald Trump. Calls to ban South Park. Liberals have called to ban South Park hundreds of thousands of times, along with the communists in China, because they don't like being made fun of. They called Xi Jinping Winnie the Pooh. This was South Park's response to that. This was in the year 2019, but it bears repeating. Official apology to China from Trey Parker and Matt Stone, these are creator of South Park. Like the NBA, we welcome the Chinese censors into our homes and into our hearts. We, too, love money more than freedom and democracy. Xi Jinping doesn't look like Winnie the Pooh at all. Tune into our 300th episode this Wednesday at 10. Long live the great Communist Party of China. May this autumn's sorghum harvest be bountiful. We good now, China?
Is anybody here still?
Yeah, and that's the difference, ladies and gentlemen. Because now, and I can't believe this is real, South Park is going after Charlie Kirk. I've worked with Charlie Kirk for a long time, going on a decade now, I suppose. And it is wild. This is real. South Park has now gone full Charlie Kirk. Cartman. Which is, in my opinion, the single greatest honor pop culture can bestow upon you. And they nailed it, by the way. Look at it. They nailed it. The hair and everything. I can't believe it's real. But it is real. Watch.
6. You can just shut up, baby, because you hate America and you love abortion. On an all-new South Park. The epic season continues.
Alright, well, I go ahead and end the live stream and then, yeah, there's a lot going on right now. So I'll end the live stream and I'll think of
So, like, imagine a world where conservatives would see